Chapter 1530. If only she was that strong. She could kill anyone she didn't like. It didn't matter if they were a prince, a princess, or an emperor. Dugazinen didn't answer, but said, "Don't talk while I'm healing you. See if you can force out that strange energy." Okay. Mo Qingfeng nodded. This strange energy was tormenting her. She wanted it to disappear from her body. Dugazinen helped her sit up and sat down cross-legged behind her. His slender white jade hand pressed against her back. His internal energy entered Mo Qingfeng's body through his palm. At first, Mo Qingfeng didn't feel anything. About an hour later, she felt her body become unobstructed. The burning pain in her meridians gradually subsided. The pain in her heart also lessened. Gradually, she felt a warm energy enter her dantian. Her furrowed brows relaxed from the pain and her expression didn't look so uncomfortable anymore. Another hour passed and Mo Qingfeng felt it even more clearly. Her meridians swelled as if there was a strong energy filling her meridians. The warmer her dantian became, the stronger the energy flowed through her meridians and then slowly gathered in her dantian. Pooh! Dugazinen's calm expression suddenly changed. His closed eyes suddenly opened. He felt pain in his chest and a metallic taste in his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The floor and sheets were dyed red. Mo Qingfeng was shocked. She quickly turned around and supported her body. Her expression was nervous. "Dugazinen, you're injured." Dugazinen raised his arm and used his sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. His handsome face was slightly pale and his brows were tightly knitted. A trace of disbelief flashed through his eyes as he stared deeply into Mo Qingfeng's worried eyes. What was going on? The strange energy in her body was actually immortal energy. Was it the immortal qi cultivated by cultivators? He taught her to cultivate Xian energy, not immortal energy. She had a mortal body. If she didn't cultivate, how could there be immortal energy in her body? How could a mortal body fight against the powerful immortal qi? Are you okay? Mo Qingfeng frowned. She was very worried. Dugazinen shook his head. He was just shocked when he found the immortal energy in her body. He was a bit distracted and suffered a backlash. He would recover after a short rest. It was just that he couldn't force the immortal energy out of her body even with his internal energy. The immortal energy in her body was a danger. If she were to circulate her energy, her body would explode sooner or later. Even if she didn't circulate her qi, this qi would jump around in her meridians from time to time, disturbing the profound qi in her dantian, causing her to be in so much pain that she would rather die than live. Dugazinen raised his head and looked at her deeply. If he wanted to completely remove the immortal energy in her body or let her control it, it seemed that the only way was to go to the Imperial Cauldron God Beast Mountain to find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Lie down and rest first. I'll get you a glass of water. Mo Qingfeng said. How do you feel? Dugazinen held her hand and stared into her eyes. My chest doesn't hurt anymore. There's a stream of heat flowing through my meridians. Mo Qingfeng rubbed his chest that was hit by Chu Mukin's palm. The broken heart vein seems to have recovered. It's good that it doesn't hurt. A hint of comfort flashed through Dugazinen's eyes. You can't circulate your cultivation recently. No matter what happens, don't make a move. Mo Qingfeng frowned. That strange aura hasn't been forced out yet. But she didn't feel any pain. Even her injured heart vein didn't hurt anymore. She thought that Dugazinen had completely forced out the strange aura for her. That's not strange aura. It's immortal energy. Mo Qingfeng raised her eyebrows. Immortal energy. Isn't immortal energy the internal energy that only immortals have? You're immortal and can't control this immortal energy. If you circulate your cultivation, you'll explode and die. Dugazinen's eyes were deep as he said faintly. Then he stared at her pale little face. I didn't teach you how to cultivate immortal energy. Who did you cultivate with when I wasn't here? That cold gaze and faint tone seemed to be blaming her for secretly cultivating other strange techniques behind his back. Not long after I left Kuching Tower, I felt my chest was heavy when I slept. It was as if a huge rock was pressing down on my chest, making it impossible for me to breathe. My meridians would burn from time to time like a fire burning. Since then, I stopped cultivating and circulating my cultivation. Mo Qingfeng said and looked at Dugazinen. She couldn't circulate her cultivation. If she encountered people like Ling Yi, Chu Mui, or O Chotian, she could only order Nailan Jinyu to attack. You can't use the life-seizing silver chain. Dugazinen shook his head. This was also circulating her cultivation. In fact, she couldn't use her strength. All her meridians were occupied by immortal energy. If she used her strength, it would make it more excited. She would suffer more pain and be in greater danger. Rest for a while. I need to adjust my breathing. I'll take you to find the truth later. Dugazinen got off the bed and left Qingxin Pavilion. Mo Qingfeng frowned and looked at the sheets and the blood on the ground with a complicated expression. This was the blood that Dugazinen spat out when he tried to heal her. 2 hours later, Dugazinen came to Qingxin Pavilion again. Mo Qingfeng was already sitting at the table, eating the millet porridge that Fu Yanxia prepared for her. After adjusting his breathing, Dugazinen's face returned to normal. Mo Qingfeng saw this and sighed in relief. Dugazinen sat across from her and looked at her with a faint smile. Finished eating. I'll take you to see them. Mo Qingfeng replied and looked at Fu Yanxia. Clean up the bowls and chopsticks. Go to the small wooden floor and see if O Yuding needs anything. Yes, Miss Mo. They came to a small wooden house in the backyard of Thousand Ji Hall. The 10 corpses were placed inside. Mo Qingfeng and Dugazinen came in. Nailan Jinyu was waiting inside. Seeing them come in together, his gaze fell on Mo Qingfeng's face. Seeing that her face was rosy and she was in good spirits, his nervous heart finally relaxed. Mo Qingfeng glanced at him and then looked at the row of corpses. Their lower bodies were covered with a layer of white cloth and their upper bodies were naked. Didn't you soak them all? Why is there no change at all? Mo Qingfeng walked closer and looked at their bodies. Look carefully at their chests. Dugazinen said. Mo Qingfeng bent down slightly and carefully examined their chests. Sure enough, there was a red dot that looked like a mosquito bite. It should be said that this red dot was smaller than a mosquito bite. It was a faint red like the color of their skin. If she didn't look carefully, she wouldn't be able to see this red dot. Was I not careful enough before? Mo Qingfeng raised an eyebrow. So she couldn't see that they all had the same red dot on their chests. If you didn't put the 7 soul grass in water for 4 hours, this red dot wouldn't be seen. Nailan Jinyu said and then looked at Dugazinen. It's all thanks to Master Dugu. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to find evidence in 3 days. Evidence? Mo Qingfeng stood up and looked at them in surprise. Do you know who did it? Dugazinen reached out his hand. There was a very thin and short silver needle in his palm. Mo Qingfeng stared at the needle. Suddenly, her eyes turned cold and she looked at Dugazinen. It's her. Chapter 1531. 3 days passed quickly, and the family members of the 10 deceased came to Thousand Ji Hall as scheduled. Ever since the death of the soul-concentrating pill spread, Thousand Ji Hall had not opened for business again. These family members seemed to have made an appointment, clamoring in front of the door to see Mo Qingfeng. The people in Kuching Tower completely ignored them. No matter how noisy they were outside, they could not hear them inside Kuching Tower. Since Kuching Tower was built hundreds of years ago, it had set up a barrier that could not be seen by the naked eye. It cut off the noise outside, but inside it was as strict as a palace. The door was not open, so no one could break in. Therefore, living in Kuching Tower was a very safe thing to do. It was not until 7 in the morning that the door of Thousand Ji Hall opened. The family members of the deceased and the people who wanted to join in the fun all gathered around. Mo Qingfeng welcomed them, followed by Duga Zainan and Nailan Jinyu. Today, Mo Qingfeng was dressed in white, and her black hair was straight to her waist. She was as beautiful as a fairy. Her appearance stunned everyone present. The family members of the deceased were first mesmerized by her beauty, then quickly reacted. Mo Qingfeng, the 3-day deadline is up. Have you found the murderer? A middle-aged man came forward with a fierce face. Mo Qingfeng indifferently swept her gaze over everyone present. She waved her hand, and the people in Kuching Tower quickly moved the 10 corpses out. At this time, the family members of the deceased were like crazy. They were emotional and rushed forward to cry. Answer me. Who is the murderer? Did my brother die from the soul concentrating pill? The middle-aged man shouted again, glaring angrily. He looked like an angry tiger, and did not know how to be gentle with the fairer sex. Mo Qingfeng slightly raised her head and looked at the man calmly. The pill this lady refined is not poisonous. They were killed by silver needles piercing their hearts. When everyone heard this, they began to discuss. They all had their own opinions, and the scene became noisy. What evidence do you have? A young woman who was crying beside a corpse suddenly raised her head and looked at Mo Qingfeng with tears in her eyes. Mo Qingfeng looked at her. She was a woman with delicate facial features and was very good-looking. The corpse lying beside her was a man who looked to be in his 40s. Mo Qingfeng walked closer to her, and her beautiful eyes became unfathomable. She stood in front of the woman and looked at her condescendingly. Yes, what evidence do you have that they were killed by silver needles? Who killed them? I think you have something to do with their deaths. Exactly. At this time, the other family members were extremely agitated and forced Mo Qingfeng to tell the truth. Suddenly, Mo Qingfeng laughed. The sunlight immediately lost its splendor and time seemed to stop at this moment. Her laughter was like 100 flowers blooming together, beautiful and stunning. It was also like 1,000-year-old red wine, mellow and sweet. Since I've come out to face everyone, it means that I have evidence. Why are you guys in such a hurry? Mo Qingfeng smiled and looked at the crying young woman. Don't you think so? The woman's expression changed slightly, and a hint of guilt flashed through her teary eyes. If you have evidence, quickly take it out. Mo Qingfeng smiled as he looked at the woman in front of him. The woman's clothes were brightly colored. Her skirt was made of the finest silk. Her hairpin was inlaid with exquisite and dazzling natural sapphires. Her earrings were inlaid with gold and were shaped like sunflowers. Duga Zinan said that silk and natural sapphires were the main products of Tan Chuan country. Sunflowers were the symbol of Tan Chuan country. Legend has it that Tan Chuan country was brought back by Queen Sunflower. Her name was Sunflower, and she loved sunflowers. Many people of Tan Chuan country planted sunflowers to commemorate the creation of the queen. Sunflowers could be seen everywhere in Tan Chuan country. Most of the women's clothes were embroidered with sunflowers, and a lot of gold and silver jewelry were shaped like sunflowers. The emperor of Tan Chuan country stipulated that all the palace maids, princesses, and concubines' gold and silver jewelry must be shaped like sunflowers. The woman's skirt was made of silk, her earrings were shaped like sunflowers, and her belt was embroidered with small sunflowers. From her appearance, she looked like a person from Tan Chuan country. Silver needles were a common hidden weapon in Rosen continent. However, only the Tan Chuan country had thin needles made of stone. On the top of Dan Xia Mountain, Ling Ye's 7 flowers had used this kind of hidden weapon against her. Nailan Jinyu investigated the information of the 10 victims very clearly. The 10 victims were all Chu Qian country's people. They had nothing to do with the people of Tan Chuan country. Why would a woman from Tan Chuan country come here to join in the fun? Mo Qingfeng had an impression of the families of the 10 victims. The man's family was the old woman, but she wasn't here today. Instead, it was this woman. In fact, she didn't need to interrogate, the answer was already revealed. Do you know him? Mo Qingfeng pointed at the corpse and asked the people who were watching the fun. He is Grandma Huang's son. Hey, why didn't Grandma Huang come today? A woman replied. She looked at the woman kneeling beside the man and curiously asked, Grandma Huang only has one son, who is she? I am Grandma Huang's future daughter-in-law. I was preparing to marry Brother Zhong, but he left me. Grandma Huang couldn't accept the death of her son. She fell ill in bed and hasn't drunk a sip of water yet. After saying that, the woman cried again. Her appearance was lovely and moving, but it was heartbreaking. When everyone heard this, they gave her a sympathetic look. Grandma Huang and her son Zhonglei opened a barbecue shop on the street, so everyone knew them. What a future daughter-in-law. Mo Qingfeng sneered in her heart. She looked at the woman with a smile on her beautiful face and reached out to her. Please restrain your grief. Stand up and speak. The woman's face was full of tears. She looked at the white hand in front of her and hesitated. Stand up and speak. Mo Qingfeng smiled. Her beautiful eyes were very charming, like a kind of enchantment. When the woman met her gaze, her mind was shaken and she reached out her hand in a daze. Mo Qingfeng pulled her up and rolled up her sleeves at the same time. There was a sunflower branded on her fair arm. In Tan Chuan country, anyone who entered the palace as a palace maid would have a sunflower brand on their arm. When Mo Qingfeng rolled up the woman's sleeve, the woman suddenly woke up. Her teary eyes suddenly became gloomy. Her empty hand gathered a wave of palm energy and was about to hit Mo Qingfeng. Duke Zinan's eyes never left her. His eyes turned cold and he quickly made a move. He sent out 2 waves of palm energy and hit her acupuncture points in the air. The woman's hand froze in midair and her body couldn't move. The finger that froze in midair held a short and thin needle. The thin needle sparkled. Everyone noticed that it was a hidden weapon. She's not one of Chu Qianguo's people? A young man exclaimed. His eyes stared straight at the sunflower on the woman's arm. Mo Qingfeng reached out and slowly took the thin needle. She raised it and said to everyone present, they were killed by this short hidden weapon. Then she looked at the man who exclaimed, she is indeed not one of Chu Qianguo's people. She has a sunflower symbol on her body. I think everyone knows which country she is from, right? Chapter 1532. Tan Chuan Country. Tan Chuan Country's palace maids all have the sunflower symbol on their arms, the man said again. Even if she's from Tan Chuan Country, how can you prove that she killed them? One of them asked loudly. That woman looked very delicate and didn't seem like a cruel person. Mo Qingfeng turned to look at Duge Zinan. Now, it was up to him to prove it to everyone. Duge Zinan's eyes were indifferent. He walked towards the row of corpses and pulled the white cloth off their bodies, revealing their chests. Dugazinen had an innate dark aura. It was cold and shocking. When everyone saw it, they didn't dare to make a ruckus. The middle-aged man who was fierce to Mo Qingfeng also lost his sharpness. He looked at Dugazinen timidly. Although this man didn't speak, he had an aura that could suppress everyone present. It was very shocking. How do you know they were killed by thin needles? The middle-aged man walked forward and asked Dugazinen carefully. Look carefully at their chests. There's a very faint red dot on them, Dugazinen said. As soon as he finished speaking, the family members of the deceased all came forward to look carefully at the deceased's chests. Sure enough, there was an imperceptible red dot on their chests. Dugazinen squatted down in front of a corpse and pressed his palm on the deceased's chest. He used his inner chi to force out the thin needle. Everyone held their breaths and came forward to look at the deceased's chest. They saw a silver needle slowly emerge from the red dot like a sprouting grass. Dugazinen got up and squatted down in front of another corpse. He used the same method to force the hidden weapon out of the heart. Mo Qingfeng walked over and picked up the exposed needle. Then, she compared it to the needle in her hand. It was as thin and as short as the needle in her hand. Did you see it clearly? The exact same hidden weapon made of rock. Only Tanchuan country has this kind of technology. They were killed by hidden weapons, not by soul-concentrating pills. Then Mo Qingfeng pointed at the motionless woman. Her eyes were cold. She's the murderer. Nonsense. You're slandering me. The woman couldn't move. She could only angrily stare at Mo Qingfeng and shout, I'm not the murderer. TSK TSK TSK. Mo Qingfeng shook his head. Just admit it. A few days ago on the top of Mount Danxia, your master, Princess Lingyi, brought the 7 flowers to kill me. They used this kind of hidden weapon. Of course, you're not the real murderer. The real murderer is your master, Princess Lingyi. When the woman heard this, she lost her composure. Master is not the murderer. You followed Princess Lingyi all the way from Tanchuan country to Chuqian country. You've just arrived at the imperial capital, yet you've already met Granny Huang's son and are preparing to get married? As the personal maidservant of Princess Lingyi of Tanchuan Kingdom, would you be forced to marry Zhonglei? Mo Qingfeng said coldly. He paused and said, your lies have been exposed, but you still want to continue lying. It only shows that you and Princess Lingyi are both stupid women. Mo Qingfeng, don't slander me. The princess didn't kill anyone. She didn't kill anyone, but she asked you to kill someone. How do you explain the hidden weapons and the fact that you pretended to be Grandma Huang's daughter-in-law? Don't tell me that you're just here to watch the show. There are many people watching the show. Why pretend to be someone else? Mo Qingfeng's eyes were cold. Her voice was cold and her face was gloomy. You can deny it. Since I know you're the murderer, don't even think about returning to Lingyi's side. Of course, she wouldn't let Lingyi off either. When the woman heard this, her expression changed. She was the princess's person in life and in death, she would be the princess's ghost. She couldn't return to the princess's side. Did this woman want to kill her? Seeing her lose her composure, Mo Qingfeng was pleased. A hint of ridicule appeared on her cold little face. She turned around and the ridicule was gone. Instead, it was replaced with guilt and apology. The murderer is Princess Lingyi of Tanchuan country. I'm sure everyone has heard about the 8th prince and Princess Lingyi. Everyone can guess why she wants to kill me. She failed to kill me, so she used such despicable means to frame me. Not only did she make everyone wrong me, but she also made the families of the deceased suffer. I didn't mean to harm these innocent people, but these people died because of me. Today, I will give everyone an explanation and compensate everyone. How could it be Princess Lingyi? A few years ago, there were rumors that the 8th prince would marry her. The two countries would unite by marriage. How could she be so bold to kill the people of Chu Qian country? That's right. Everyone says that Princess Lingyi is a kind person. She just arrived in Chu Qian country and killed the people of Chu Qian country. Isn't this trying to cause a war between the two countries? Miss Mo, this woman didn't admit that she killed them. Mo Qingfeng smiled. She didn't admit it now, but it didn't mean that she wouldn't admit it later. Mo Qingfeng turned around and smiled at Nailan Jinyu. Bring Princess Lingyi out. When the woman heard this, her expression changed greatly. The princess was caught by her. Impossible. It was clearly the princess who ordered her to come. Before she came, the princess was still in the 8th prince's residence. Thinking that the 8th prince was seriously injured, Du Wenjun and Bai Shuling were all injured, wasn't it easy for this woman to catch the princess? Soon, two men from Kuqing building came out with Lingyi, who was wearing a purple dress. Lingyi struggled. When she saw Mo Qingfeng, her beautiful eyes suddenly became vicious. Mo Qingfeng, what can you do if you catch me? My royal father and royal brother won't let you go. The emperor of Chu Qian country won't let you go either. You must die. Princess. When the woman saw Lingyi, she was shocked. Lingyi glared at her fiercely. Useless thing, you can't even do something I asked you to do. Princess Lingyi, you dare to admit what you did. Your people are in my hands, what's the point of denying it? Admit it in front of everyone, and I will spare your life. If you anger me, you know the consequences. Mo Qingfeng looked at her coldly with a face full of ridicule. So what if I killed them? That's right, I framed you, so what? They all deserve to die. Lingyi said viciously, her eyes were extremely cold. They have no grudges with you, why do they deserve to die? Mo Qingfeng frowned and looked at Lingyi coldly. Humph. I thought that if they died, you would have no place in Chu Qian country. This princess took the wrong step. Lingyi snorted and said angrily. It's not like that. Princess, they weren't killed by you, it was this servant who killed them. Shut up. Lingyi shouted. She raised her chin and looked at Mo Qingfeng arrogantly. I am the princess of Tan Chuan country. I can kill whoever I want. What can you do to me? Of course I won't do anything to you. I just want you to explain in front of everyone and prove my innocence. Since you've admitted it, this lady's innocence has been returned. What can I do to you? You can go your way, and I will go mine. Mo Qingfeng looked deeply at the two men who brought Lingyi out. Take her back and tell the 8th prince to come get her. Chapter 1533. Yes. Miss Mo. The two men responded and dragged Lingyi into Qianji Hall. Don't touch me. You don't have the right to touch me. Mo Qingfeng, don't even think about taking Brother Mu Qin from me. Brother Mu Qin is mine. I am Chu Qinggua's 8th princess consort and will be Chu Qinggua's empress in the future. Lingyi struggled and screamed. She wouldn't let the two assassins take her away, but she couldn't win against the assassins with high cultivation. Princess. Chao Er's face was full of nervousness. Mo Qingfeng walked in front of her and looked down at her. Your princess has already admitted it. Seeing that you're loyal, I'll spare your life. Although she said that, her voice was extremely cold and her eyes flashed with killing intent. I killed them, not the princess. If it wasn't for her order, you wouldn't have killed them. Mo Qingfeng said coldly and then waved her hand. Bai Shuling came over and took Chao Er into Qianji Hall. Mo Qingfeng stood in front of Qianji Hall and faced everyone calmly. Her beautiful face was full of guilt. I opened Qianji Hall to trade pills not only to make a living, but also to help sick people regain their health. I'm also responsible for their deaths, but the dead can't be brought back to life. I can only try my best to compensate their families. Tomorrow, I'll have people from Kuching restaurant send compensation to the families of the dead. If the families of the dead are sick, they can come to Qianji Hall for free. Miss Mo, I'm sorry. We wronged you before. The fierce-looking middle-aged man walked in front of Mo Qingfeng and took the initiative to apologize. Mo Qingfeng looked at him deeply and said apologetically, I'm the one who's sorry. If it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have died. No. It's all Princess Ling Ye's fault. She was vicious and killed my husband. It has nothing to do with Miss Mo. That's right. If you want to blame someone, blame that princess of Tanchuan country. She's too vicious. What right does such a vicious woman have to be Chu Qinghua's empress? What right does she have to marry the 8th prince? Suddenly, the scene was in an uproar. Everyone unanimously objected to Ling marrying Chu Mukin. Everyone saw Ling Ye's expression just now. It was incomparably vicious. If she really came to the capital, she would definitely not let Miss Mo off. Although Qianji Hall had not been open for long, the patients who had been treated by Mo Qingfeng before had their conditions greatly improved. Some of the old illnesses that had been there for decades could not be cured even after searching for doctors from all over the world. They came to Mo Qingfeng's place to get a few doses of medicine back home and decoct it, and their conditions greatly improved. If it wasn't for the death of the soul concentrating pill, they would have continued to look for her for treatment. Now that the truth was out, they hoped to find Mo Qingfeng as soon as possible. However, Mo Qingfeng said that Qianji Hall would not open for business for 7 days. She was afraid that someone would be harmed again. She did not want to implicate everyone, so Qianji Hall would not open for business for 7 days. She was told to go back and consider whether to open for business. She would give everyone an answer then. Thus, everyone returned in disappointment. Qingxin Pavilion. Duke Zinan sat opposite Mo Qingfeng, his deep black eyes gazing at her affectionately. Mo Qingfeng drank her tea as if nothing had happened, but her heart was very unnatural. Looking at her with such deep affection, it made her feel that he loved her deeply. It made her feel uncomfortable. She thought about how he had helped her a lot since she came here. Like the soul concentrating pill, if it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have been able to find evidence to prove that Ling Yi framed her. I didn't expect Yinxia's acting to be so good if... Mo Qingfeng suddenly stopped. If she was in the modern era, she would definitely become a famous star. If what? Duke Zinan asked gently, his eyes full of affection. Mo Qingfeng raised her eyes and looked at him deeply. If Chu Mukin knew that Fu Yanxia played Ling Yi, he would definitely be very angry. You want to know the answer? I think there will be a good show tomorrow. Mo Qingfeng's eyes flashed, looking at Duke Zinan's black eyes. Duke Zinan, are you the most powerful person in Rosen Continent? Duke Zinan raised his eyebrows, his eyes smiling. Why do you ask? I think you are very powerful. Mo Qingfeng curled her lips and said. She used to be very confident, but in front of him, she felt a lot of pressure. She liked this feeling very much. Isn't it good that I am powerful? I can protect you. When Mo Qingfeng heard this, her heart shook. Are you confessing to me? Was he her destined one in this world? There were many men around her, Chu Mukin, Nailan Jinyu, O Yuding. Facing them and facing Duke Zinan, the feeling and mood were different. Could it be that she already had feelings for him? Duke Zinan's lips curved, revealing a gentle smile. This gentle smile was as clear as the moon. Although he didn't answer her, seeing his smile, Mo Qingfeng seemed to understand his heart. Sure enough, as Duge Xinin guessed, the next day, everyone in the imperial capital blocked the gate of the 8th Wangfu, clamoring for Chu Mukin to drive Lingyi back to Tanchuan country and absolutely not marry her. They swore that if Chu Mukin married Lingyi, they would tear down the 8th Wangfu. This was a blatant threat. Mo Qingfeng and Duge Xinin, who were sitting on the roof of a tall building opposite the 8th Wangfu, looked at the group of troublemakers with interest. Did you incite them to do this? Mo Qingfeng turned her head and glanced at Duge Xinin with a smile. Duge Xinin smiled faintly. There's no need to incite them, the eyes of the crowd are clear. Mo Qingfeng was in a very good mood. She really didn't expect that the people would go to the 8th Wangfu to oppose Lingyi marrying Chu Mukin. She remembered what Zhao Minjing said to her before she died. The woman Chu Mukin wanted to marry was Lingyi, and the woman who wanted her to be the Wangfei was also Lingyi. Now that everyone in the imperial capital was against Lingyi marrying him, he must be in a very bad mood, right? She finally understood why Duge Xinin didn't let her kill Chu Mukin immediately. It turned out that there was a good show to watch later. Watching him suffer was better than watching him die. There were too many people clamoring. The guard guarding the gate had never encountered such a thing. After reporting to Chu Mukin said gloomily and asked him to close the gate and let them make noise. In the 8th Wangfu, there was a gloomy atmosphere everywhere. Everyone knew that the Wangye was in a very bad mood. Everyone was frightened and did things carefully. They didn't even dare to speak loudly. In the Longxian Palace Hall, Chu Mukin was lying on a soft chair. His jade-like handsome face was extremely gloomy. His thin lips were tightly pursed, and his slender phoenix eyes were deep and indifferent. Lingyi had been by his side for a long time, but she didn't hear him say a word. The cold air emitted from his body was extremely frightening. He was seriously injured and hadn't recovered yet. Now that there was noise outside, it made him upset. Lingyi was anxious and angry. It was all because of Mo Qingfeng. Brother Mukin, can you pay attention to Lingyi? Why don't you have a cup of tea? Lingyi brought a cup of tea and squatted in front of Chu Mukin. Her eyes were beautiful and moving. Chapter 1534. Seeing her like this, no one could imagine that she was actually a vicious woman. Chu Mukin retracted his gaze and looked at her deeply. His eyes were calm and extremely cold. Lingyi felt a little guilty under his gaze. Brother Mukin, why did you do this? Although he knew that the Lingyi in Qianji Hall wasn't the real Lingyi and that it was one of Mo Qingfeng's tricks, he didn't doubt her methods. Those 10 innocent people were killed by Lingyi. The Lingyi in Qianji Hall was fake, but Chao was real. If Chao admitted it, would he still foolishly believe that she didn't kill them? Brother Mukin, it was Mo Qingfeng who framed me. She forced Chao to agree. Lingyi said with a trace of viciousness in her eyes, maybe that Chao is also fake. Mo Qingfeng is very scheming. She is a black-hearted woman. She framed me. Chu Mukin raised his eyebrows and looked at Lingyi indifferently. You still dare to lie in front of this prince? Lingyi's face turned pale and looked at Chu Mukin in a daze. Princess Lingyi, do you really think this prince is a fool? After knowing that they died, this prince guessed that it was you who did it. Lingyi's face turned even paler. Brother Mukin. He actually knew that she did it. Why didn't he say it? Go to the palace tomorrow and tell father to arrange for someone to send you back to Tanchuan country. Chu Mukin said coldly. No. Lingyi jumped up when she heard that. The teacup in her hand fell and shattered. I'm not going back to Tanchuan country. I came all the way from Tanchuan country to find you because I want to be with you. I've already told father that he is already preparing for our marriage. Your father is also preparing for our marriage. I'm going to marry you. Why do you want to send me back to Tanchuan country at this time? Brother Mukin, I'm not going back to Tanchuan country. Look at the people outside. Can you still marry this prince? Chu Mukin frowned slightly. His gaze was very cold, and his voice was also very cold. As long as Brother Mukin loves me deeply, why should I care what they say? Ling also said, but she hated Mo Qingfeng in her heart. At the same time, she was afraid that Chu Mukin would say that he didn't love her deeply, so he sent her back to Tanchuan country. Ling also loved Chu Muqin deeply. She wanted to become his princess consort and become Chu Qianguo's empress in the future. If Chu Mukin said that he didn't love her, she wouldn't be able to accept it. She could vaguely feel that he already had another woman in his heart. This woman was Mo Qingfeng. Women were sensitive. Even if he didn't say it, she could feel it. No matter who he was thinking of, who he missed, as long as she became his princess consort and Chu Qianguo's empress in the future, as long as the woman he missed was not by his side. She framed Mo Qingfeng to drive her away from the capital and make her disappear from Chu Mukin's sight forever. Yi Qingyun and Zhao Minjing were both dead, which saved her a lot of trouble. Now, only Mo Qingfeng was left. Ling Yi hated Mo Qingfeng very much because she was too beautiful, which made her jealous. This prince cares. Chu Mukin looked at her coldly. If I marry you, the entire palace will be destroyed by them. Brother Mukin, you are a prince, the emperor's most beloved prince. How can they treat you like this? If you show them the dignity of a prince, they won't dare to treat you like this. Don't say any more. This prince won't marry you. Ling Yi trembled and looked at Chu Mukin in shock. Her face was pale. The two countries are already preparing for our marriage. You actually said that you won't marry me. Do you really have that wild woman Mo Qingfeng in your heart? Chu Mukin's face was gloomy and angry. If you didn't cause such a big trouble, this prince would consider marrying you. Now that things have happened, how will you deal with it? How will you calm their angry hearts? Do you want this prince to give the order to kill them all? They are the people of Chu Qianguo. Without people, how can there be a country? What's the use of having a country? You are the princess of Tanchuan country. When you first arrived in Chu Qianguo, you killed the people of Chu Qianguo and then married the 8th princess consort. Will the emperor still agree to this marriage? Will the emperor of Tanchuan country still have the face to talk about this marriage? You haven't even married and you treat the people of Chu Qianguo like this. If you become the empress of Chu Qianguo, won't you kill your own people as you wish? Tell me, how can a woman with a strong jealousy and vicious methods be worthy of being the empress? How can you be this prince's woman? When Ling Yi heard this, her body trembled and she staggered a few steps. Her head was buzzing. Looking at the angry Chu Mukin, her heart slowly sank. She couldn't believe what she heard was true. Brother Mukin, you admit that she is your princess consort. You actually admitted it. If he didn't marry her, the blow wouldn't be so big. He actually said that Mo Qingfeng was his princess consort. If Mo Qingfeng was his princess consort, then what was she in his heart? Du Wenjun, take Princess Ling Yi to rest. Chu Mukin said coldly to the door. Du Wenjun pushed the door and came in. His injury was better and his face was slightly pale. Princess Ling Yi, please. Du Wenjun walked to Ling Ye's side and stopped. He wasn't interested in Ling Yi at all. In addition, she killed 10 innocent people of Chu Qianguo. Du Wenjun was even more disgusted with her. If she wasn't Princess Ling Yi, he wouldn't need Chu Mukin to say anything and he would drive her out. Just like what his master said, A vicious woman like her didn't deserve to be Chu Qianguo's 8th princess consort, let alone be Chu Qianguo's empress. His master was so outstanding, why should he marry a vicious woman? In Du Wenjun's heart, he also believed that Mo Qingfeng was the princess consort. Although the princess consort was cold, she would never kill innocent people. And she would never use despicable means to frame others. Brother Mukin, are you driving me away? Ling Yi ignored Du Wenjun. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she looked at Chu Mukin pitifully. Chu Mukin was expressionless and looked at Du Wenjun coldly. Take her out. Yes, master. Du Wenjun responded. His arm rose and fell. Ling Yi felt pain at the back of her neck. Before she could react, her vision turned black and she fainted. Du Wenjun caught her body and dragged her out. Chu Mukin got up and stood in front of the window. His face was dark and his cold and deep eyes looked out of the window. The front yard was full of flowers with different colors. It was beautiful. The wind blew gently and the flowers swayed. It was like a beautiful face was smiling at him. It was as if the cold and noble figure was standing there among the flowers, looking at him indifferently. Thinking of the day before yesterday when she coldly ordered to kill him, her eyes were cold and emotionless. His heart was very heavy. Mo Qingfeng, this prince has already recognized you as this prince's princess consort. Why do you have to be so evil and want to kill this prince? Chu Mukin's eyes suddenly darkened and his face was gloomy. So what if she had Duge Nan and Nalan Jinyu by her side? She was destined to belong to him in this life. Chapter 1535. At noon, after lunch, Bai Shuling told him that the commoners blocking the door had not left yet. They insisted that Chu Mukin give them a reply today. They wanted him to swear in front of them that he would not marry Princess Ling Yi of Tanchuan country before they would leave. Running away wasn't a solution. Chu Mukin wasn't someone who ran away. After noon, the gate of the residence opened. Chu Mukin stood in front of everyone in a silver robe. When he came out, everyone quieted down and looked at the noble 8th prince. Chu Mukin's reputation in Chu Qianguo was very good. If Ling Yi hadn't killed Chu Qianguo's people, they would have given him their blessings. He could marry any woman, not even Ling Yi. Such a vicious woman, Chu Qianguo couldn't accept her. Chu Mukin stood there and didn't say a word. He just looked at everyone without blinking. His white jade-like face was very cold. His whole body was shrouded in a dense aura. In the past, although the 8th prince was cold, he was noble and had a clean aura. Today, he was emitting a gloomy aura. It was as if he was a ghost that just came out of hell and would come for their lives at any time. Mo Qingfeng, who had been waiting on the roof, saw him come out. A sneer appeared on her beautiful face. She didn't believe that he could continue to hide. Ling Yi was his beloved woman. Now he had to swear in front of so many people that he wouldn't marry her. His heart must be very uncomfortable, right? Didn't you want this prince's reply? This prince will give you a reply now. This prince will not marry Princess Ling Yi. Chu Mukin said coldly. His voice was like thunder. Even Mo Qingfeng and Duge Zinan heard it clearly. Princess Ling Yi is a vicious woman. For her own selfish desires, she doesn't care about other people's lives. This kind of woman isn't worthy to be Chu Qianguo's 8th prince's wife. If the 8th prince wants to marry her, we will go to the palace gate every day. We don't believe that the emperor will kill us. That's right. There are countless good women in Rosen continent. There's no need to marry a vicious woman. Don't worry. This prince said that I won't marry Princess Ling Yi. This prince's princess will always be Mo Qingfeng. When Duge Zinan heard this, his eyes turned cold. The gloomy aura around him became stronger. He narrowed his eyes and his slender phoenix eyes emitted a dangerous light. When Mo Qingfeng heard this, she frowned unhappily. This man really deserved to die. It was already evening when they returned to Kuching Pavilion. After dinner, Dugazinen left the Pure Heart Pavilion and returned to his courtyard. Mo Qingfeng entered the space. It had been a few days since he last entered the space. He missed this place. After entering the space, the first thing he did was go to the wooden barrel to look at World Dominators. When he walked to the wooden barrel, World Dominators wasn't there. Mo Qingfeng frowned. World Dominators never left the bucket. If it wasn't in the spirit spring, where would it go? No matter where it went, it could only. Mo Qingfeng walked towards the spirit lake. After taking a few steps, he heard footsteps behind him. From the sound of the footsteps, it seemed like someone was walking barefoot. Of the world. She turned around abruptly. Mo Qingfeng was startled. Just as he was about to make a move, the other party hurriedly said, "Wife, stop." "Wife?" Mo Qingfeng exclaimed. Who was this man in front of her? Red hair, green eyes, skin as white as snow, thin lips, delicate facial features, and a devilish aura. He was tall and straight, with sexy chest muscles. His fingers were slender and his nails were transparent like crystals. Devilish. Mo Qingfeng said coldly. Damn it, such a perfect man was standing in front of her naked. She really wanted to reach out and take off that thing between his legs. Wife, I'm the world dominator, not a devilish. The handsome man said. His voice was very pleasant. His beauty was different from Dugazinen's. Dugazinen was as handsome as him, but his aura was different. Dugazinen was surrounded by a gloomy aura, while the man in front of her had a very clean aura. But he also gave people the feeling that he was a demon. Mo Qingfeng thought that he was indeed a demon, a chicken demon. World Dominator. Mo Qingfeng looked him up and down. Damn it, this was the first time she looked at a handsome man's naked body so boldly, and this man didn't seem shy at all. Yes. World Dominator said. But from today onwards, I'm no longer called World Dominator. This name is very unpleasant. You can call me Gue Mei from now on. I haven't seen you for a few days, and you turned from a chicken into a human. Mo Qingfeng was curious. There were levels in cultivation. If a magical beast wanted to turn into a human, it had to break through the upper 9th rank. Wasn't his cultivation too fast? I was an ancient phoenix. 800 years ago, I broke through the middle 10th rank. If it wasn't for the dragon god sealing me, I wouldn't have turned into a chicken. I'll go get you a set of clothes. We'll talk when I come back. Mo Qingfeng wasn't interested in his past at all. After he soaked in the spirit spring, she knew that this day would come. Just like the skylark in Qinglu, she was a magical beast that broke through the upper 9th rank. As long as she broke through, she could turn into a human. But she didn't expect World Dominator to turn into a human so quickly. Coming out of the space, Mo Qingfeng walked directly to Dugazinen's courtyard. World Dominator was about the same height as Dugazinen. She wanted to ask Dugazinen for a set of men's clothes. Her steps were quick but light, as if she didn't make any sound. Just as she reached the front yard, she heard Dugazinen's cold voice before she pushed the door open. Zitan, it seems like you've been bought over by Feng Nong. From today onwards you'll follow Feng Nong. I don't need you anymore. Zitan said this for Master's sake. Master treats Miss Mo's injuries every day and will exhaust your cultivation and energy. If little Master Feng Nong finds out, he'll be heartbroken. Zitan said anxiously. I know what I'm doing. Scram. Master, don't you care about little Master Feng Nong anymore? Don't you care about little Master Feng Nong? Scram back to Duga Castle and stay by Feng Nong's side. I don't need you anymore. Scram. Duga Xinan's voice was cold and carried the hostility before a storm. Mo Qingfeng stood outside until it was quiet inside. Then she pushed the door open and entered. Under the long corridor, Duga Xinan, who was dressed in black, stood there motionlessly. His eyes were deep, as if all the dark energy in the world was shrouded in his body. He was like an Azura. Hearing the soft footsteps, Duga Xinan retracted his gaze and looked at Mo Qingfeng. He was slightly startled. You're here. I want to borrow a set of men's clothes from you. Mo Qingfeng said and frowned slightly. Why did she see a trace of impatience in his eyes? Duga Xinan frowned and looked at her petite body. You want men's clothes. You don't fit my clothes. Chapter 1536. I borrowed it from a friend of mine. Duga Xinan looked at her deeply. After a while, he turned and went into the room. Mo Qingfeng didn't go in. She looked at his tall back and thought, is Feng Nong the woman he loves? After a while, Duga Xinan came out with a purple robe and handed it to her. Mo Qingfeng took it and looked deeply into his black eyes. Duga Xinan, will you get married with Feng Nong? No. Duga Xinan's eyes were cold. Who was he? How could he marry a woman he didn't like? He saw Feng Nong as his little sister, and Feng Nong saw him as the most important man in her life. This made him very annoyed. Mo Qingfeng looked up and met his deep eyes. A trace of tenderness flashed through his deep eyes. It was like a flash in the pan, beautiful and moving. Mo Qingfeng looked at him. No matter how good Duga Xinan was, he might not be the one for her. He was good to her, maybe because he felt that she had the familiar smell of his mother. Maybe the original owner was his mother's reincarnation, so she didn't hate him among so many people. She even believed in him. But this wasn't a private matter between men and women. Healing me will consume your cultivation. Why didn't you tell me? Mo Qingfeng looked at him and asked. You can cultivate if you consume your cultivation. If you explode and die, where can I find you? Mo Qingfeng smiled. I won't explode and die so easily. I'm going to give clothes to my friend. She turned and walked away. Duga Xinan looked at the cold and lonely back and couldn't help but feel pity in his heart. She was completely different, but he liked her like this more. So, he wouldn't miss her again. Mo Qingfeng entered the space and threw the robe to World Dominator. Wear it. I don't want to talk to a naked body. World Dominator was very comfortable. He took the clothes and looked at it over and over again before slowly wearing it. The purple robe made him look even more devilish. His red hair shined and his green eyes were like water. Looking at him, Mo Qingfeng felt like she was reading a manga. Now that you've turned into a human, can you go outside? Mo Qingfeng looked at World Dominators indifferently. He was still cuter when he turned into a rooster. She could still hug and pet him when he turned into a rooster. Wife, I want to drink the spirit spring water here every day. My breakthroughs were all thanks to your spirit spring water. You can drink the spirit spring every day, but you can't stay here. The space was his personal space. Now that he had become a human, he had to leave this place. As long as I can drink spirit spring water every day, I will go wherever you want me to go. Mo Qingfeng looked at him up and down and raised his eyebrows. You said you were an ancient phoenix. How did you turn into a chicken and coincidentally get caught by Chu Mukin to marry me? World Dominators laid on the ground and used his hands to support his head. His red hair spread out, making him look extremely evil. To tell you the truth, the one you married was indeed an ordinary rooster. I only injected my soul into that rooster on that stormy night. That wasn't my true body. My true body is very beautiful. Mo Qingfeng was stunned. Lei Yuye's soul entered the rooster's body. Just like her soul came from the modern world and entered Mo Qingfeng's body. You're a magical beast. Did you have a master? Mo Qingfeng asked. Ancient Phoenix. Could it be related to her? World Dominators pondered for a long time and shook his head. I forgot. It's been 800 years. It's already good that I can remember that I'm an ancient phoenix. The evil eyes looked at Mo Qingfeng. I'll follow you from now on. You're my wife. Mo Qingfeng smiled. Could a human and a beast become husband and wife? Your soul entered World Dominators after I married you. You're Gue Mei, not my World Dominators. Don't call me wife. If you call me wife, I'll call you World Dominators. World Dominators sounds really bad. Gue Mei pursed his lips. Little Feng Feng, I want to go outside and take a look. Mo Qingfeng's eyes twitched. Little Feng Feng. Why was it more awkward than wife? When she took Gue Mei out of the space, the moon was already high in the sky. Mo Qingfeng let Gue Mei live in a room next to her boudoir. Gue Mei liked the outside environment very much. Compared to inside the space, he preferred to be outside. When he was outside, he was very excited and very curious. He wandered around Kuching Lu. In the blink of an eye, Mo Qingfeng couldn't find him. She simply waited for him to come back at Qingxin Pavilion. She strolled slowly in the courtyard of Qingxin Pavilion. Under the night, she was cold and proud. Her hair was like ink, and her blue clothes were dyed with a faint white light. The faint moonlight poured down, making her even more cold and proud. East Wing Building. A tall figure stood on the roof. The silver moonlight sprinkled on his body. He was as handsome as a banished immortal. His gentle eyes flashed with a touch of complexity. He looked affectionately at Qingxin Pavilion. Looking at that proud and aloof figure, his heartstrings moved slightly. This woman had attracted all of his attention. Her wisdom and peerless beauty made him admire her very much. How did a woman who was once rumored to be a fool and an ugly monster become so peerless and proud? Young Master Nalan, you silently look at Miss Mo every day. Why don't you tell her your thoughts? The white-clothed youth standing behind Nalan Jinyu took 2 steps forward. He looked towards the Pure Heart Pavilion and said faintly. Nalan Jinyu smiled bitterly. Do you think she will listen if I tell her? If you don't tell her, how will she understand your thoughts? If some things are said, even friends can't be anymore. Besides, she has Duge Zinin, the evil king, by her side. Do you think he will let her go easily? Nalan Jinyu's gentle eyes flashed with a strange light when Duge Zinin was mentioned. The youth didn't speak anymore. The evil king wasn't someone anyone could provoke. Young Master Nalan hadn't been promoted yet, so he couldn't defeat the evil king. Of course, he wouldn't provoke him at this time. When Mo Qingfeng wanted to return to her room, suddenly, a very strong qi rushed around her body, as if it wanted to break her meridians. This time, the speed was faster than usual. Her heart didn't hurt, but all the meridians in her body felt like they were being burned. Her entire body, her 8 extraordinary meridians, her 5 viscera, and her 6 bowels were all in pain. She was in so much pain that she wanted to die. The qi was like a sharp knife, constantly slashing around her body. Ah! It was too painful. She wanted to go back to the pavilion and sit down, but before she could take a step, her legs went soft and she fell to the ground. She wanted to support her body with her hands, but even her hands didn't have the strength. She could only lie on the ground and groan in pain. She didn't even have the strength to struggle or roll around like a soft doll. Nailin, who had been silently watching her, saw her fall to the ground and his expression changed. He flew up and rushed towards her. On the other side, a black shadow swept over like the wind. At the same time, Gue Mei, who was wandering around Kuching Pavilion, also came back. He saw Mo Qingfeng on the ground and a black shadow full of murderous intent approaching. Chapter 1537. His eyes turned cold and he quickly rushed forward. When the black shadow approached Mo Qingfeng, Ghost Demon attacked and a red light slashed towards Duge Nan like a sword. Duge Nan's body flashed and dodged the red light. He also sent out a white light to attack Gue Mei. Mo Qingfeng looked up and saw them fighting. She wanted to stop them but couldn't. Damn, they were all on the same side. What was there to fight about? Miss Mo. Nailin rushed over and his gentle face showed a hint of anxiety. He was just about to pick her up. In a flash, Mo Qingfeng's body floated up from the ground and then flew into Duge Nan's arms. Nailin hands froze in the air and a strange look flashed through his anxious eyes. Duge Nan held Mo Qingfeng in his arms and coldly said to Ghost Demon, whose eyes were filled with killing intent, "This sovereign will spare your life for now. Saving people was more important now." His body flashed and he returned to his courtyard and put Mo Qingfeng, who was about to lose consciousness from the pain, on the bed. At this time, her face was as white as paper and she was sweating profusely. His heart ached. Worry flashed across Duge Nan's handsome face. He quickly took out a black pill and put it in her mouth. His slender fingers touched her chest and she swallowed the pill. He helped her up and sat cross-legged behind her. He put his hands on her back and used his inner qi to help her suppress the immortal qi. An hour later, the excruciating pain gradually disappeared, and Mo Qingfeng gradually regained consciousness. Duge Nan helped her down and let her lie on the bed. His eyes were filled with heartache. He sat by the bed and wiped the sweat off her forehead. His eyes deeply stared at her pale little face. "How many years of cultivation will you use to do this?" Mo Qingfeng looked at him and asked quietly. "Don't talk about this. Rest well. Don't get up for 2 hours." He only suppressed the immortal energy in her body and couldn't force it out. After 3 days, the immortal energy would recover and torture her again. Duge Nan's eyes were deep. It seemed that he really had to go to the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain to find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Only the dragon-taming spiritual pearl could force the immortal energy out of her body. "This sovereign will go find Yanxia to take care of you." Duge Nan came out and saw Ghost Demon standing in the corridor. His green eyes flashed with killing intent as he looked at him. Ghost Demon Duge Nan coldly looked at him. Red hair, green eyes, and white as snow, he remembered the rooster Mo Qingfeng was hugged in the 8th manor. He raised his eyebrows and sneered, "A phoenix wants to defeat this sovereign." Ghost Demon was stunned. "It's been 800 years, but it's still the same. How could we not know?" Ghost Duge Nan, to meet. Gue Mei looked at Duge Nan in surprise. That thick killing intent from before had long disappeared. When he was fighting with Duge Nan, he had felt the other party's dark aura. This aura was very familiar, but he couldn't remember who it was. Now that he heard him say this, he looked at him in surprise. The aura on him that was as noble as a god and as dark as the king of the underworld was even more familiar. 800 years ago. He knew everything that happened 800 years ago. Who could he be? Duge Nan looked at him coldly. His thin lips curled up, but he didn't interrupt his recollection. Suddenly, Gue Mei exclaimed and looked at Duge Nan in shock. His mouth twitched for a long time before he exclaimed, "Master. Are you the evil king, master?" Duge Nan flicked his sleeves with an outstanding posture and coldly swept a glance at Gue Mei. "You've only slept for 800 years and you've already forgotten about me. Scram and face the wall to reflect on your mistakes." "Master, please don't." Gue Mei also just realized his mistake. His brain isn't working well. Gue Mei stepped forward, wanting to beg Duge Nan to forgive his mistake. Before he could finish speaking, a white light attacked him. His body flashed, and that white light hit a sycamore tree behind him. Looking back, he saw that the tree had been split open. Ghost Charm stood still with sweat on his forehead. He stared blankly at the black shadow that was leaving. That was close. When did Master become so violent? That's great. I didn't expect it to be so enlightened and find its master so quickly. After Gue Mei and Duge Nan left, a white shadow flashed into the room. Nalan Jinyu stood in front of the bed, his eyes looking worriedly at the person on the bed. Mo Qingfeng was very tired and closed her eyes to rest. She knew that Nalan Jinyu had come in. Her senses were very good. She didn't need to open her eyes to know who was standing in the room. Nalan Jinyu had a faint plum blossom scent on his body. After being with him for so long, she was already very familiar with his scent. "You're seriously injured?" Nalan Jinyu asked, his voice hoarse and worried. If she wasn't seriously injured, how could she be in so much pain? He saw very clearly just now that she was in pain. Her face was extremely pale, and her consciousness was not clear. Mo Qingfeng responded softly. She was injured. Her situation was even more serious than being injured. "Who is Gue Mei? Why did he call you his wife?" After a moment of silence, Nalan Jinyu asked. Just now outside, Gue Mei said that she was his wife. Magic pet. Mo Qingfeng opened her eyes. Her eyes were dim as she looked at Nalan Jinyu. "Young Master Nalan, why are you looking for me?" Nalan Jinyu smiled bitterly in his heart. "Do I have to find you for something? I'm worried about your injury. When did you get injured? Why didn't I know?" When she challenged Kuqing Lu, she was still fine. Ever since she took over Kuqing Lu, he knew almost everything that happened to her. Who hurt her like this? Where did she get injured? Why didn't he know? Old illness. Mo Qingfeng faintly spat out these 3 words. She didn't know how she was injured, and even Duge Zinan didn't know. Mo Qingfeng frowned, and her beautiful eyes revealed a hint of determination. No matter where this immortal energy came from, she must drive it out of her body. She wasn't an immortal. She didn't need this immortal energy. "Is there a pill that can cure it?" Nalan Jinyu asked. "Yes." Mo Qingfeng looked at Nalan Jinyu. Perhaps because she didn't want him to worry, she smiled faintly. "I know medicine and I know how to refine pills. Naturally, I have pills to treat my old illness. It's just that it's a little complicated and can't be cured in a short time." Perhaps because she spoke too much in one breath, she was panting and her face was pale. "Young Master Nalan, I'm so tired. I want to rest." Nalan Jinyu nodded. "Take care of your illness. You don't have to worry about Kuqing Lu. Put aside the matter of the medical center for now. Make plans after you recover." "Okay." Mo Qingfeng responded softly. She was really too tired. She closed her eyes and looked at the room in front of her. Nalan Jinyu looked at her affectionately. Seeing her so weak, he felt very sorry for her. He really wanted to share some of her pain. After a while, he quietly left. Before leaving, he gently closed the door. Young Master Nalan. Just as he walked out of the door, Fu Yanxia came over with a bowl of millet porridge. What is this? Nalan Jinyu coldly glanced at the thing in Fu Yanxia's bowl. His voice was extremely cold. Nalan Jinyu was originally a cold person. He would only show his gentle side in front of Mo Qingfeng. Millet porridge. Young Master Duge asked Yanxia to bring it to Miss Mo, Fu Yanxia said. Miss Mo liked to eat millet porridge. Nalan Jinyu took the bowl from Fu Yanxia's hand. She's asleep. You go back to the room. I'll bring it to her later. Yes. Fu Yanxia respectfully responded, then turned and left. Wait. Fu Yanxia turned and looked at Nalan Jinyu. Young Master Nalan, what's the matter? What is Duge Zinan doing? He seems to be regulating his breathing in the back mountain. Fu Yanxia said uncertainly. When he ordered her to take care of Mo Qingfeng, Gue Mei was also there. Before she left, she seemed to have heard him say to Gue Mei not to disturb him. He wanted to go to the back to regulate his breathing. However, Gue Mei said that he would watch over him. He would not make a sound and would not let anyone disturb him. Got it. You can leave. Nalan Jinyu said. Yes. Fu Yanxia responded and turned to leave. Looking at the millet porridge in the bowl, Nalan Jinyu's indifferent eyes surged with a layer of darkness. The moonlight was so beautiful tonight. The moonlight shone through the window and dyed the entire room with a thin layer of silver. Inside the room, a white-clothed figure silently landed in front of the bed. He stood there motionlessly, his eyes unblinking as he stared at the beauty on the bed. Although Mo Qingfeng closed her eyes, she still knew that someone had appeared. The aura did not belong to Nalan Jinyu, nor did it seem to belong to Duge Zinan, nor did it seem to belong to Gue Mei. Could it be him? Mo Qingfeng suddenly opened her eyes. It was indeed Chu Mukin. How did you get in? But the building was heavily guarded. There was a barrier set up during the construction. Even if it was Duge Zinan, if the door was not opened, he might not be able to come in. How did he come in? Mo Qingfeng's eyes were cold. He sent himself to the door. It was simply sending himself to death. Chu Mukin stood there. His white jade-like face was extremely dark. He was dressed in white, but the aura around him was very dark. Mo Qingfeng did not move. She just looked at him coldly. Only this king can save you. After a long time, Chu Mukin said faintly. His eyes flashed with a touch of darkness. Mo Qingfeng sneered. Do you think you can get out of here after breaking into the building? You have a mortal body. Only this king can save the immortal aura in your body. How? Mo Qingfeng sneered. There was no free lunch in the world. If he wanted to save her, he must negotiate with her. He boldly broke in just to save her. Mo Qingfeng's face turned cold. Her beautiful eyes were cold. She did not care about his kindness at all. The immortal aura in your body will explode sooner or later. At that time, you will explode and die. You are only a mortal body. You can't control the immortal aura. The person who injected the immortal aura into your body has not realized it yet. Once he realizes it, you will be powerless. Chu Mukin's eyes locked on her pale little face and said in a low voice. Mo Qingfeng frowned and looked at Chu Mukin coldly. After a while, she asked, Do you know who injected this immortal aura into my body? Chapter 1538. Of course I know. Who? If she knew who it was, she would chop this person into 8 pieces to relieve the hatred in her heart. Damn, he made her suffer so much pain. You can't know for now. When the time is right, I will tell you. Mo Qingfeng sneered. So the immortal energy in her body was injected by someone. Then who could it be? De Gazinin. Impossible, he wouldn't do that. If it was him, he wouldn't use his internal energy to calm it down for her. Chu Mukin, if you don't tell me now, I'm afraid you won't have a chance in the future. Mo Qingfeng looked at him coldly and clenched her right hand. Since I can come in, I can go out. If you don't want to die, let me save you. How? Only my young body can save you. If you want the immortal energy in your body to disappear, you have to combine your yin and yang with me. After 3 days, the immortal energy will disappear. Chu Mukin said slowly. When Mo Qingfeng heard this, her eyes became even colder. Combine yin and yang. She sneered and looked at Chu Mukin coldly. Chu Mukin, do you think you need a furnace to become an immortal? I said that De Gazinin can't save you. Only I can save you. Chu Mukin said, his dark face gradually becoming gentle. You are my princess. Combining yin and yang with me is also a husband and wife thing. What's wrong with that? My beloved, I will only accept you as my wife in this life. You're courting death. Mo Qingfeng's eyes were cold. She raised her right hand and the silver chain of death shot out. Chu Mukin jumped and dodged the silver chain, then went straight to the bed. He knew that she couldn't use her energy now. Even if she made a move, she wasn't his opponent. This was the best time to take her back. Mo Qingfeng jumped from the bed and flew to the roof beam. The silver chain of death shot out again. Chu Mukin dodged the silver chain again and went straight for Mo Qingfeng. Damn it! Flying from the bed to the roof beam, Mo Qingfeng felt her meridians begin to hurt again. The immortal energy that was suppressed by De Gazinin was stirring up again. The terrible pain came again. Mo Qingfeng knew that Chu Mukin was going to take advantage of her. When he flew over, she jumped down from the roof beam. Ah, her body was out of her control when she jumped down. When she landed, she crashed into the front of the table. It wasn't a wise choice to fight with him at this time. Mo Qingfeng wanted to activate his will and try to enter the space. Bang! At this time, De Gazinin broke through the door and stopped Chu Mukin, who rushed forward to catch Mo Qingfeng. Chu Mukin, there's a path to heaven but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell. You're courting death. De Gazinin said coldly. He stretched out his arm and pulled Mo Qingfeng into his embrace. His other hand attacked Chu Mukin viciously. Master, let me help you. Gue Mei rushed forward to confront Chu Mukin. Instantly, a murderous aura filled the room. Chu Mukin was like a madman tonight. Every move was vicious. He did not look like he was seriously injured at all. The fight was fierce, from the inside of the house to the inside of the house, very quickly alerted the assassins of Kuching Lu. Chu Mukin knew that if he didn't leave now, it would be too late. A powerful white light condensed in his palm. With a shout, the white light shot out and attacked De Gazinin and Gue Mei. He turned into a wisp of white smoke and quickly drifted to Qingxin Pavilion. Want to run? It's not that easy. Gue Mei chased after him and chased him to the backyard of Qingxin Pavilion. The wisp of white smoke disappeared. Gue Mei looked around. Where is he? Suddenly, Nailan Jinyu appeared behind Gue Mei in a white robe. He ran away. Gue Mei said with annoyance. The people he wanted to catch had never escaped. That Chu Mukin actually ran away. Gue Mei had an impression of Chu Mukin. When he was in the 8th Lord's mansion, he disliked this man very much. Especially when he saw how indifferent he was to Mo Qingfeng, he wanted to bite him. Tonight, he thought that if he caught him, he would torture him. Unexpectedly, he ran away. What bad luck! Young Master Nalan. Young Master Nalan. Lark chased up with the people of Kuching Lu. Seeing Nalan Jinyu, they stopped and looked at him. Is the enchantment of Kuching Lu broken? How come we didn't know that outsiders broke in? Nalan Jinyu's eyes were gloomy and looked at them coldly. Young Master Nalan, the enchantment is not broken. We don't have the ability to break the enchantment around Kuching Lu, Lark said. As for why there was no movement at all when outsiders broke in, they couldn't figure it out. People who weren't from Kuching Lu couldn't break in. Tonight, an outsider broke in. It was the first time in hundreds of years. And they let him run away. If this spread out, would Kuching Lu still have its prestige? Wouldn't everyone be able to break in? Tonight, someone broke into Kuching Lu. If anyone spreads this, I want their head. A cold voice sounded. Everyone turned around and looked at the awe-inspiring Imo Qingfeng and the cold Duga Zinin. Listening to her cold and ruthless voice, the people of Kuching Lu stood aside solemnly. They didn't even dare to breathe. Imo Qingfeng walked in front of them. Her eyes were cold and sharp. You all search around. If you catch the other party, kill him. Also, as the assassins of Kuching Lu, you didn't even know that an outsider broke in and ran away. If this spread out, it would only embarrass Kuching Lu. It would also cause more outsiders to break in. In this way, Kuching Lu would be no different from the mansion outside. Miss Mo, we are very ashamed that we didn't catch the assassin. We won't say a word about what happened tonight. Lark promised. As soon as she finished speaking, the other assassins swore to her that they wouldn't say a word about what happened tonight. Go and search. Don't let him run away. Mo Qingfeng waved her hand and said coldly. Hearing this, they all quickly dispersed to search for Chu Mukin, leaving only Nalan Jinyu and Gue Mei. Mo Qingfeng turned around and looked deeply at Nalan Jinyu. Chu Mukin came for me. I'm really sorry to disturb you. Nalan Jinyu looked at her gently. As long as Miss Mo is fine, it's fine. You are the owner of Kuching Lu. No matter who came for, as long as they break into Kuching Lu, they must die. As he said that, a trace of viciousness quickly flashed through his gentle eyes. Duga Zinin narrowed his eyes. His slender phoenix eyes emitted a sharp light like that of a night hawk. It faintly shot onto Nalan Jinyu. Nalan Jinyu felt a gaze on him. He glanced at Duga Zinin and turned his body slightly to avoid his gaze. When he turned around, a trace of coldness flashed through his gentle eyes. Feng, you shouldn't stand for too long. You were cultivating just now. When we return to the house, I will use internal energy to suppress that immortal energy. Otherwise, you will be tortured by pain again tomorrow. Duga Zinin stepped forward and gently placed his hands on Mo Qingfeng's shoulders. His voice was gentle and pleasant. Chapter 1539. Mo Qingfeng looked around and murmured, Chu Mu Chen was clearly heavily injured. Could it be that he recovered in 2 days? Could he be hiding in some corner? He did leave Kuching Tower. There's no sign of him in any corner. Gue Mei suddenly said. Mo Qingfeng turned around and looked at him, are you sure? Gue Mei nodded and looked at Duga Zainan, Master, Chu Mukin really isn't in Kuching Tower. Duga Zainan trusted Gue Mei's ability. If he said Chu Mukin wasn't in Kuching Tower, then it meant Chu Mukin wasn't in Kuching Tower. Master. Mo Qingfeng frowned and looked at them in confusion. Dominators of the world, you call him master. Wife, I said I'm not called dominators of the world, I'm called Gue Mei. Gue Mei shook his red hair and said narcissistically, "Look at how handsome I am." Dominators of the world is such an old-fashioned name. Only Gue Mei is worthy of such a handsome person like me. Okay, Gue Mei is Gue Mei. It's just a code name. You're clearly mine. Why are you calling Duguze Nan master? Mo Qingfeng looked at Duguze Nan. He and Gue Mei met today, right? What was he trying to do by snatching her man away so quickly? Gue Mei naturally knew that Duguze Nan didn't want Mo Qingfeng to know his other identity. He said slowly, "He's better looking and stronger than you. The master I want must be as strong as him." Mo Qingfeng gritted her teeth. Was he better looking than her? Why didn't she think so? Humph. He was stronger than her now. She would definitely be stronger than him in the future. You're not allowed to call me wife in the future. Mo Qingfeng said coldly. She sounded a little angry. Little Feng Feng, I'll call you Little Feng Feng in the future. Gue Mei didn't care about her anger. With his master here, she wouldn't be angry for long. Mo Qingfeng gave Gue Mei a "you're crazy" look. Then she looked at Nailan Jinyu, who was standing there silently. Since Chu Mukin isn't in Kuching Tower, tell them to stop searching and return to their posts. Okay. Nailan Jinyu replied. She glanced at Duguze Nan with a complicated expression and turned to leave. Duguze Nan narrowed his eyes and looked at Nailan Jinyu's back with deep meaning. A sneer appeared on his delicate face. Back in the house, Duguze Nan once again used his internal energy to suppress the immortal energy in Mo Qingfeng's body. This was not a solution. Every time, she would lose her cultivation, and she could only suppress this qi. She still could not circulate her qi. If he was not by her side, who would protect her like what happened tonight? This anger must be forced out, and she must become stronger. The only way was to go to the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain and find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Duguze Nan sat in front of the table, his jade-white fingers holding a white porcelain teacup. He had been holding the teacup to his mouth for a long time. The tea in the cup was already cold, but he didn't take a sip. His gaze was dark as he looked at the beauty on the bed. His gloomy eyes were filled with complicated emotions as he stared at Mo Qingfeng. His Adam's apple moved up and down as if he was very thirsty. After an unknown amount of time, he slowly opened his mouth. His voice was low, as if he was suppressing something. Chu Mukin said that if yin and yang combined, the immortal energy in your body will be eliminated. When Mo Qingfeng heard this, her whole body trembled. Her eyes suddenly opened and she turned her head. After a flash of surprise, her eyes suddenly became cold. Duguze Nan, what are you trying to say? The combination of yin and yang can really eliminate the immortal energy in your body. Why not try it? Duguze Nan suddenly smiled. His smile was very demonic and a bit evil. You want me to give you my body? Mo Qingfeng frowned. The men here really knew how to talk in circles. If they wanted to do her, they would do her. They even found such a good excuse. Yin and yang combination. What a good combination of yin and yang. I want both your heart and your body. Duguze's smile was enough to topple a city. His gaze was gentle. Mo Qingfeng smiled. Duguze Nan, you can't have fallen in love with me, right? Mo Qingfeng admitted that this body was too perfect, especially the face. It was so beautiful that she didn't dare to look in the mirror, afraid that she would fall in love with herself. Moreover, she also inherited the skills she brought from the modern era. She knew medicine and could refine pills. If it wasn't for the immortal energy in her body, she could also cultivate to become a strong person. This kind of woman was very popular in the Rosen continent. Any man would want her. there was still a long way to go. No matter how strong one was, who knew if Duguze Nan was the strongest one? Who knew if he was sincere to her? Besides, he also had Fong Nong by his side. She wouldn't be stupid enough to talk about love with Duguze Nan at this time. Duguze Nan frowned. Love? What was love? He didn't know what love was, but he was very clear that he wanted this woman. No man could have her. In this life, she belonged to him. If I say I love you, will you combine yin and yang with me? Duguze Nan smiled. After careful consideration, he said this. Impossible. Mo Qingfeng's eyes were cold. She firmly said, I won't combine yin and yang with you. I won't let this immortal energy take my life. She wanted to live, and she wanted to live very well. She was a person who had died once. She was no longer afraid of death, but she didn't want to die like this. It was too easy for the person who injected immortal energy into her. Thinking of this, Mo Qingfeng's eyes became even colder. Her beautiful face seemed to be covered with a thin layer of ice. She coldly looked at Duguze Nan. Chu Mukin said that this immortal energy was injected into my body by someone. Why didn't I know? When was it injected? When was it injected? Why didn't she know? Duguze Nan stared at her and tightly pursed his thin lips. I also don't know. If I knew, I would chop this person into 8 pieces. How could he not know? Besides Chu Mukin, who else would cultivate immortal energy? Cultivators hadn't become gods yet. The energy in his body was only true energy, not immortal energy. Obviously, Chu Mukin had already cultivated to become an immortal. Thinking of this, Duguze Nan's eyes were as deep as an ancient pool. He injected immortal energy into her body just to keep her by his side. He thought too simply. How could Duguze Nan let him have her so easily? She was his. No one could take her away. Feng if you don't want to combine yin and yang with me, you have to find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Right now, only the dragon-taming spiritual pearl can drive away the immortal energy in your body. After thinking for a moment, Duguze Nan finally told her that besides the combination of yin and yang, only the dragon-taming spiritual pearl could save her. Whether the combination of yin and yang could get rid of the immortal energy in her body was only what Chu Mukin said. He didn't know if it really could. What he said just now was just to tease her and make her happy. In fact, he wouldn't bully her like this. What if the combination of yin and yang didn't work? Chapter 1540. What if the combination of yin and yang didn't work? Wouldn't that be a waste of time? Chu Mukin just wanted to get her, that's why he said such an excuse. Chu Mukin, this man deserved to die. Of course, Duguze Nan wouldn't let him die so easily. Dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Mo Qingfeng raised an eyebrow. Even if it wasn't to get rid of the immortal energy in her body, she would still go to the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain to find it. She also planned to deal with the matter of Kuqing Restaurant and stabilize Qinji Hall. Then, she would temporarily hand it over to Nailan Jinyu and Fu Yanxia to manage while she went to find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. After listening to Duguze Nan, it seemed that she had to go to the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain in advance. Mo Qingfeng's gaze was firm as she looked at Duguze Nan. I'm going to find it. I'll leave tomorrow. She didn't want to suffer that pain, and she didn't want Duguze Nan to waste his cultivation for her. She wanted Chu Mukin to know that the combination of yin and yang wasn't the only way to get rid of the immortal energy. She also wanted the person who injected the immortal energy into her body to see that it couldn't take her life. With the friend-taming spiritual pearl, she would become stronger. This was what Duguze Nan once said. She wanted to become stronger and live well on this continent. Dugazinen's eyes darkened. Tomorrow. Won't tomorrow be too rushed? No, Chenji Hall isn't open for business for the time being. I'm very free in Kuching restaurant. Mo Qingfeng said, then looked at Dugazinen. Will you go with me? Dugazinen raised an eyebrow. In your current situation, if I don't go with you, when can you go to the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain? What if you encounter danger on the way? Mo Qingfeng heard this and her heart warmed. She deliberately muttered, if you don't go with me, I can let Nalan Gongzi accompany me. This sovereign absolutely won't allow another man to accompany you. Dugaze Nan coldly said with a hint of grinding teeth. Mo Qingfeng smiled. What a domineering man. The next day, Mo Qingfeng went to the small wooden house in the backyard to see Lu Ting. She insisted on taking a bath and then locked herself in the small wooden house. After 3 days, his body swelled up a lot. She could recognize him from his face. Ah Dong and Ah Nan's eyes lit up when they saw her, and they treated her with much more respect. Miss Mo. Miss Mo. They greeted her together. Mo Qingfeng nodded and walked to O Yuting's side. He had fallen asleep on the bamboo chair and was sleeping soundly. Are you still complaining in the middle of the night? Mo Qingfeng glanced at Ah Nan and asked. Ah Nan replied, he said he was itchy last night, but I didn't see young master scratch himself. After drinking several cups of honeysuckle tea, he fell into a deep sleep. After 3 more days, he should be more or less healed. After 3 days, bring him back to the O residence and insist on feeding him honeysuckle tea. Don't let him be exposed to the wind outside. Then, she turned to Fu Yanxia and said, Yanxia, you'll be taking care of young Master O for the next 3 days. I'll give you the prescription. When they leave, go to the prescription and ask them to take it back and tell them how to decoct it. Yanxia understands. Fu Yanxia replied. Mo Qingfeng was going somewhere far away, and Fu Yanxia didn't want her to leave, but Mo Qingfeng said that she was going out to do something very important and urgent, and it wasn't convenient for her to take her out. Fu Yanxia knew that with Duga Gongzi by Miss Mo's side, Miss Mo would be safe. But she really didn't want her to leave. After coming out of the wooden house, Mo Qingfeng returned to the Pure Heart Pavilion. She already told Nalan Jinyu that Fu Yanxia had prepared a lot of food for her, which she put inside the space. With the 9 Dragon Ball space, it wouldn't be a problem to travel across the entire Rosen continent. Everything was ready. Mo Qingfeng, Dugazinen, and Gue Mei left Clear House and headed north. The Imperial Cauldron God Beast Mountain was located in the north, while Chu Qinggua's Emperor Mountain was located in the southwest. After leaving the imperial capital, Dugazinen called the Iron Blood Bat. The 3 sat on the back of the Iron Blood Bat and flew away. The Iron Blood Bat recognized Dugazinen as its master. Even if it flew very fast, it would still get tired and would stop to rest. After flying for 3 days, they would stop to rest for 1 day. And on this day, they would walk. Every time they stopped to rest, Dugazinen would find a place to settle down and use his inner qi to suppress the immortal qi in Mo Qingfeng's body. Then he would spend 2 hours to adjust his breathing. He felt that the immortal qi in Mo Qingfeng's body was getting stronger and stronger. If they didn't find the dragon-taming spirit pearl soon, his inner qi wouldn't be able to suppress it. She would be in danger at any time. Therefore, they were in a hurry. Along the way, they met people who were sick, droughts, beautiful sceneries, clans killing each other for benefits, and so on. They didn't stop to watch. There were several spectacular sceneries. Mo Qingfeng wanted to stop and take a look, but she wanted to get the dragon-taming spirit pearl as soon as possible. In the end, she didn't stop. Along the way, Dugazinen took good care of her. Every 3 to 4 days, he would use his inner chi to suppress the immortal chi in her body. To be honest, meeting such a man, which woman wouldn't be moved? But thinking that he might have treated her as his mother, Mo Qingfeng's heart turned cold. There were dangers along the way, but with Dugazinen and Gue Mei, she didn't need to participate in any of the dangers. They hurried without stopping. The plan was to arrive at Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain in 7 months. Only when they arrived did they realize that it had only taken 6 months. At this time, the entire mountain was covered in white snow. Standing at the foot of Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain, they looked up at the beautiful scenery. Mo Qingfeng took out the Iron Blood Scripture Pill Scroll. Dugazinen leaned over and looked at the map to find the exact location of the dragon-taming spirit pearl. Ordinary people didn't dare to enter Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain. Many cultivators who came here to train lost their lives. There were tens of thousands of monsters and blood-sucking demons. After finding the exact location of the dragon-taming spirit pearl, Dugazinen had the Iron Blood Bat fly them to the top of the mountain. At this time, the 3 of them stood at the highest peak of Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain, looking down at the bottomless abyss. Below was where the dragon-taming spirit pearl was kept. That was the cliff of the most dangerous peak. It was so dangerous that even birds couldn't fly over it. Who was the one who hid the dragon-taming spiritual pearl there? Will there be traps down there? Mo Qingfeng tilted her head and asked Dugazinen. Traps can't be avoided. Dugazinen looked deeply at her. How about you and the Iron Blood Bat stay at the top of the mountain? I'll go down with Ghost. The immortal chi in my body hasn't acted up recently. I don't think it'll be a problem for me to cultivate. I'll go with you. Mo Qingfeng said. She was someone who liked to take risks. Also, she was looking for the dragon-taming spirit pearl. How could she not go? Dugazinen thought for a bit. He looked at Ghost and then at the Iron Blood Bat. He nodded and said, then let's go down together. He didn't feel at ease leaving her at the top of the mountain. They jumped on the Iron Blood Bat's back. The Iron Blood Bat's body quickly descended. As time passed, waves of air rushed up from the bottom. They jumped around in the air and cut their bodies. It was as painful as a sharp knife cutting their skin. Dugazinen opened his robe and hugged Mo Qingfeng's body in his arms. This way, she would feel less pain. Gue Mei looked at his master with a smile on his face. He had seen his master's care for Mo Qingfeng all the way here. He realized that his master was very special to her. When they reached the middle of the mountain, the Iron Blood Bat stopped. Mo Qingfeng came out of Dugazinen's arms. She looked at the stone wall in front of her. Is the dragon-taming spirit pearl hidden here? Mo Qingfeng looked around. There were stone walls all around. Where was the dragon-taming spirit pearl? According to the map, it should be here. Dugazinen said. He waved his hand and a black light shot out from his palm like a dragon. Mo Qingfeng stared at the black light. The black light was like a gecko attached to the stone wall. It moved slowly. After a while, the black light drilled into the stone wall. A strange scene began to happen. The sound of the ground cracking could be heard. The place where the black light was attached to slowly cracked open, and then there was a loud sound, as if something had exploded inside. The stone wall that was still fine a moment ago had a square hole in it in the blink of an eye. The hole wasn't big. It could fit a person. When the hole opened, a cold air rushed out. There was also a trace of an unpleasant smell. The dragon-taming spirit pearl is hidden inside. Mo Qingfeng looked at the hole and asked in surprise. The temperature outside was already so cold. If she went in, wouldn't her body freeze? Dugazinen stretched out his long arm and pulled her into his embrace. He leaped into the air and left the ferric blood bats back. Ghost also leaped into the air. After they left, the iron blood bat suddenly turned into a cloud of black mist and drilled into the hole. Dugazinen's body flashed and entered the hole. When he came in, he found that this was a very long passage. They bent their bodies and quickly walked forward. The further they went, the larger the space and the brighter the light became. After walking through this passage, they appeared in a large room that looked like an ancient tomb. The walls around the room were engraved with strange and different patterns. There were intertwined pythons, beautiful women, immortal-like men, all kinds of flowers, and some strange words that Mo Qingfeng couldn't understand. Under the walls, there were transparent jade coffins. Inside the coffins, there were young and beautiful women. Mo Qingfeng looked at the women in the coffins and asked Dugazinen, "This can't be an emperor's tomb, right?" There was a high platform in the middle of the room. There was a large red stone on the platform. On the red stone, there was a night pearl the size of a human head. The reason why it was so bright was because of the night pearl. "It doesn't look like it." Dugazinen's voice was low. His deep eyes flashed with a strange light. "It doesn't look like it." Mo Qingfeng asked in confusion. Why did she feel like it was an emperor's tomb? Chapter 1541. As a Special Forces soldier, she had a certain understanding of ancient tombs. After the ancient emperors died, they would bury their concubines in a lot of gold, silver, and jewels with them. They probably wanted to continue enjoying such honor and power after death. Also, the tomb had to be like the palace he lived in. The large room in front of them was like the entrance to an ancient tomb. As for where the emperor's coffin was, they would have to slowly find it. "Where is the dragon-taming spiritual pearl?" Mo Qingfeng asked and took out the iron blood scripture again. "It's no use looking at it. It's recorded on this mountain. We'll have to find the specific location." Dugazinen looked deeply at her and said. Hearing this, Mo Qingfeng put away the iron blood scripture pill scroll and walked towards the jade coffins. "Maybe it's on these women." Saying this, she wanted to open the lid of a coffin. Dugazinen hurriedly stopped her. "Don't open it." "Why?" Mo Qingfeng looked at Dugazinen in confusion. "Don't open it rashly. Maybe there's poison inside." Mo Qingfeng frowned. Why didn't she think of this? Even if there wasn't poison, opening the lid rashly would cause a foul smell to rush out. Everyone wants the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. If it was so easy to find, it would have been in someone else's hands long ago. Dugazinen said. "These coffins have never been opened. Could it be that no one could break in? Maybe the dragon-taming spiritual pearl is among the women in these coffins." Mo Qingfeng didn't agree with Dugazinen's words. The dragon-taming spiritual pearl was a treasure. If outsiders wanted to take it, it was their business. The premise was that no one knew where the dragon-taming spiritual pearl was hidden. They only knew that the location of the dragon-taming spiritual pearl was recorded in the iron blood scripture pill scroll. However, very few people knew that the iron blood scripture pill scroll was hidden in the O mansion. Even if they knew, they wouldn't be able to take the iron blood scripture pill scroll out of thin air like Dugazinen. People wanted to take it, but they didn't have the ability. Dugazinen had the ability, but he didn't want to take it. Mo Qingfeng felt that if it wasn't for the immortal energy in her body, Dugazinen wouldn't have accompanied her here to find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Dugazinen's eyes were deep as he looked at Mo Qingfeng. "Trust me. If I say it's not in these coffins, then it's not in them." Mo Qingfeng looked up at him. "Do you know where it is?" Little Fong Fong, just believe in Master. He won't lie to you. Let's look elsewhere first. Gue Mei flung his waist-length red hair, looking incomparably charming. What an evildoer. Mo Ching Fong rolled his eyes at him. What a lazy guy. Hurry up and help me find her. This big room doesn't even have one. It's useless to look for it. Gue Mei said. He couldn't understand why Xiao Fong Fong didn't like him when he demonized into a human body. She wasn't close to him anymore. Before he transformed into a human, she would talk to him whenever she entered the space. She would even hug him and caress him. Now that he had transformed into a human, wouldn't it be more comfortable to hug him? Why did he stop hugging her? How do you know if you don't look for it? Mo Ching Fong raised her eyebrows. Along the way, she saw that this ghost ate more than her and Duge Xinin combined, but did things lazily. Duge Xinin walked in front of the wall and reached out to touch the strange pictures. You guys look for it on these pictures. But be careful. These pictures could be a mechanism or a passage. Mo Ching Fong and Gue Mei heard this and went forward. They began to search on the pictures. Gotcha! Mo Ching Fong groped on the lotus picture. As soon as her hand touched it, the ground shook. There was a loud noise and the wall in front of her cracked into a gap. Duge Xinin was afraid that she would be in danger. His body swept past her and his long arm reached out. He hooked her waist and moved a few steps away. The gap slowly widened from the size of an arm to about a meter wide. Go in. Duge Xinin held her hand and walked into the gap. They walked in front and Gue Mei walked behind. They didn't notice that when they walked into the gap, the jade coffin in the big room automatically opened. The young woman lying inside slowly stood up and jumped out of the jade coffin. She twisted her neck and stretched her arms, making cracking sounds. Gue Mei, who was walking at the back, suddenly felt a strange chill from behind. She turned around and saw the 1,000-year-old female corpses flying towards them. Gue Mei's body flashed and blocked them. She started fighting with them. What's going on? Mo Ching Fong turned around and looked at the beautiful women. They were just lying in the jade coffin. How did they come out in the blink of an eye? Were they living or dead? When fighting, their hands and feet were so nimble. Their clothes rustled and their hair flew. Even if they were alive, they must have been startled when the stone wall cracked. Duge Xinin pulled her forward. Leave this to Gue Mei. Let's go in. Master, you're leaving me like this. Gue Mei turned around. Duge Xinin held Mo Qingfeng's hand and walked further and further away. In order to catch up to them, Gue Mei fought with her life on the line. They looked like living people, but in reality, they were 1,000-year-old cold corpses. Gue Mei slapped their heads to the ground. But soon, the heads that fell to the ground returned to their bodies and broke their arms. Not long later, the arms returned to their bodies. They couldn't keep fighting like this. They had no life. If they were beaten down, they could stand up. How long were they going to fight? Gue Mei's gaze darkened. She slapped them back into the jade coffin one by one. Lying back in the jade coffin, they suddenly quieted down. The jade coffin lid automatically closed and they returned to their original appearance. They obediently lay inside with their eyes closed. It was as if the fight just now had never happened. Mo Ching Fong and Duge Xinin quickly came to another dark room. The walls of the dark room were also engraved with all kinds of strange patterns. There was also a jade coffin, but the ones lying in the transparent jade coffin here weren't women. Instead, they were young and beautiful men. Their faces seemed to be the same. They lay there quietly with their eyes closed. There wasn't a trace of decay. It was as if they were sleeping. This was a secret room. There were walls on all sides. Mo Qingfeng felt a very light wind blowing without any direction. There was also a faint and alluring fragrance. Duge Xinin, do you smell a very strange fragrance? Duge Xinin nodded. It should be bewitching fragrance. Bewitching fragrance. Mo Qingfeng frowned. The two slowly walked forward. Ha ha ha, suddenly, a woman's laughter came from afar. It came closer and closer. It was very charming. The laughter sounded, but there was no figure. Could it be an auditory hallucination? Mo Qingfeng looked at the serious Duge Xinin and asked. The laughter was very strange. There were stone walls all around. The laughter seemed to come from a very far place. This secret room was much more majestic than the previous one. The floor was covered with rare jade brocade. There were lanterns hanging on the walls that would never be extinguished and would never burn out. There were also night pearls. There was a table made of jade in the center. The table was engraved with exquisite patterns. There were also teacups and teapots on the table. Further ahead was a hanging bead curtain. Behind the bead curtain was a soft couch. A woman in white was lying on the couch. The woman's face was covered with a veil. Her face couldn't be seen clearly. Could it be that this wasn't the emperor's tomb but the imperial concubine's tomb? Mo Qingfeng stopped and looked at the woman on the couch. The woman's hands were flat on her chest. Her fingers were as thin as spring onions and as white as jade. There was also a faint layer of red. She didn't look like a dead person. Duge Xinin, do you think she's dead? Mo Qingfeng looked back at Duge Xinin and asked. Duge Xinin's eyes were complicated as he stared at the woman on the couch. An indescribable emotion appeared on his delicate face. Mo Qingfeng frowned. It was just a veiled woman. How could he have such an expression? Suddenly, Mo Qingfeng's eyes lit up. Could it be that the dragon-taming spiritual pearl was on that woman? Mo Qingfeng didn't ask Duge Xinin anymore. She jumped up and landed in front of the couch. She stood there and looked down at the woman from head to toe. Suddenly, the veil on the woman's face fluttered. Mo Qingfeng's gaze followed that piece of gauze. It was like a light leaf that slowly floated to the ground. She retracted her gaze and looked at the woman's face. It would have been better if she didn't look. Once she looked, Mo Qingfeng's expression changed drastically. It was as if she had seen a ghost. She screamed and stumbled back. Then she fell heavily on the ground. She looked at the woman on the couch in horror. What was going on? The woman's face was exactly the same as her face in her previous life. Seeing the woman on the couch was like seeing herself. No matter how bold Mo Qingfeng was, she was still frightened. Anyone who saw the person lying in the coffin was exactly the same as her would be shocked, right? Duge Xinin slowly walked over and stood behind her. He looked at her with a complicated gaze. There was even a hint of excitement in his eyes. Her reaction made him confirm one thing. After the shock, Mo Qingfeng rushed forward and laid in front of the bed. She stared at the woman's face without blinking. It really looked like her. It was exactly the same as her previous life. Even with her eyes closed, there was still a cold aura between her brows. Was this her previous life's body? Mo Qingfeng trembled as she reached out and picked up her arm. She opened her palm. Seeing the broken palm, her heart was even more agitated. She had a broken palm in her previous life. This woman's palm was also a broken palm. Could it be that her soul transmigrated into Mo Qingfeng's body and her corpse transmigrated to this damned place? Impossible. A soul transmigrated. How could a corpse transmigrate? This was impossible. Her trembling hand caressed the woman's face. Mo Qingfeng's beautiful eyes were filled with deep sorrow. It was as if she had seen her family member pass away. This face, this figure, it was exactly the same as her previous life. Who is she? Mo Qingfeng knew that Duge Zinan was standing behind her. She didn't turn around and asked in a trembling voice. Legend has it that the dragon-taming spiritual pearl belongs to the Hell King consort. She should be the Hell King consort. Duge Zinan's voice was low with a hint of bitterness. Hell King consort. Hell King consort. Mo Qingfeng muttered absent-mindedly. Suddenly, there was a flash in front of her eyes. The woman's mouth opened and a light yellow light emitted from her mouth. Mo Qingfeng regained his senses and retracted his gaze. He suddenly leaned out and looked at her mouth in surprise. There was a yellow pearl in her mouth. The pearl was only the size of a thumb. Mo Qingfeng quickly took it out. It was transparent and flashed with a faint yellow light. The moment she held it, Mo Qingfeng felt a cold aura enter her body from her palm. It was so cold that she shivered. Soon, the coldness disappeared and was followed by a wave of warmth. This is the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. Duge Zinan's voice came from behind her. How can I use it to remove the immortal energy in my body? Mo Qingfeng asked softly. Before Duge Zinan could speak, the dragon-taming spiritual pearl in her hand suddenly flashed with yellow light and flew out of Mo Qingfeng's palm. The light grew stronger and stronger as it flew into the air and slowly spun. Duge Zinan's eyes darkened. He glanced at the dragon-taming spiritual pearl hanging in the air and then looked at Mo Qingfeng with a complicated expression. The dragon-taming spiritual pearl left her palm. Did it not recognize her? She still had the same aura. It was impossible for the dragon-taming spiritual pearl to not recognize her. Whoosh! The dragon-taming spiritual pearl shot towards Mo Qingfeng like a bullet. It was very fast. Mo Qingfeng wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The dragon-taming spiritual pearl entered her forehead. Her body swayed. After she steadied herself, she didn't feel anything. There was no pain. Seeing this, Duge Zinan's deep eyes suddenly became pleasantly surprised. The dragon-taming spiritual pearl entered her body. What's going on? Mo Qingfeng reached out and touched the space between her eyebrows. It was sore, but under her touch, the sore feeling disappeared. The dragon-taming spiritual pearl entered your body. The immortal energy in your body will be completely removed in 3 days. Duge Zinan suppressed some kind of excitement and looked at her with deep eyes. Mo Qingfeng looked at Duge Zinan in disbelief. It's so easy to find the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. I thought that there would be a lot of traps and that I would have to go through countless life and death battles to get it. Duge Zinan smiled. That's because I accompanied you. If you or someone else accompanied you, you might not be able to get it even after going through countless life and death battles. Narcissist. Mo Qingfeng coldly snorted. It was as if he was the only expert in the entire Rosen continent. Master, little Feng Feng, I finally found you. At this time, Gue Mei's figure flashed and stood beside Duge Zinan. He was panting heavily. Mo Qingfeng coldly glanced at him. Just a few thousand-year-old corpses and you took so long. 1,000-year-old corpses, a group of enchanting women, Gue Mei didn't finish his words and suddenly stopped. He looked behind Mo Qingfeng in shock. Master, look, when Gue Mei rushed in, Duge Zinan saw the change behind Mo Qingfeng. A strange fragrance floated from behind. Mo Qingfeng frowned. When Gue Mei pointed behind her, she knew that danger was approaching. But Duge Zinan didn't panic, so she pretended not to turn around. It was just that the fragrance in the air made her nose choke. What a strong fragrance. Mo Qingfeng turned around and saw 5 women crawling up from behind the jade couch of the woman who looked similar to her. They were wearing transparent gauze that couldn't cover their bodies. Each woman's gauze was of a different color: white, yellow, purple, green, cyan. Chapter 1542. Faintly discernible, they looked at Duge Xinin and Gue Mei with such hunger and thirst. Mo Qingfeng's eyes twitched as she stared at the woman on the bed. Who was she? How could there be such a woman in his tomb? They slowly walked towards Duge Xinin and Gue Mei. Every step they took, they exuded a strong seductiveness. Mo Qingfeng moved away and stood behind Duge Xinin. She looked at him with a complicated gaze. No wonder he didn't make a move when he saw them. They were all seductive and wore transparent clothes. Any normal man wouldn't be able to control his desires when he saw so many beauties. Master, we've been waiting for you for a long time. Accompany us. We're so lonely. The 5 women swayed their waists as they walked over. They knelt down in front of Duge Xinin and Gue Mei. Their hands climbed onto their legs. Their voices were coquettish. Mo Qingfeng got goosebumps when he heard them. Young master, I need you. As they spoke, their hands were still caressing their own bodies. They even took off the thin layer of gauze on their bodies. Mo Qingfeng looked at them in a daze. Wasn't this too bold? She looked up again and stared at Duge Xinin and Gue Mei. Why didn't they have any expressions? They saw 5 naked women with such good figures. Their skin was as white as snow and their faces were like flowers. Why did they have such expressions? Cold, gloomy, dangerous. Mo Qingfeng's face turned hot when she saw them like this, but they didn't feel anything at all. Their willpower must be strong, right? Duge Xinin, how do you plan to deal with them? Mo Qingfeng moved closer to Duge Xinin's ear and asked in an evil tone. How do you want me to deal with them? Duge Xinin's lips revealed a mysterious smile. He tilted his head and looked at Mo Qingfeng with a dark gaze. Mo Qingfeng smiled faintly. You can do whatever you want. I'm leaving. As she spoke, she took a few steps back. A trace of amusement gradually appeared in her cold eyes as she looked at them. Ah! Gue Mei lifted his leg and the woman who was about to climb up his leg was kicked away. The corner of Mo Qingfeng's mouth twitched. This phoenix really didn't know how to be protective of the fairer sex, right? His kick infuriated the other girls. Just a moment ago, they were still charming, but in the blink of an eye, they became sinister. They opened their mouths, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, and let out squeaking sounds. The woman who was kicked away only let out a very strange scream. In the blink of an eye, as if there was an elastic force, she returned to her original position and opened her mouth to babble at the ghost. Now that they had turned from charming to ferocious, would they still show mercy? 2 men and 5 women began to fight. Although they were all women, their combat strength was quite strong. Mo Qingfeng stood to the side and watched. Duge Xinin and Gue Mei's fists landed on the women's bodies, but they didn't seem to be injured at all. After being sent flying, they would quickly return. When the cyclones hit their bodies, they would only let out miserable cries, but they did not feel any pain. Furthermore, the more they fought, the stronger they became. Master, they don't seem to be able to die. Ghost was so tired that he was panting heavily. He retreated to Mo Qingfeng's side and watched Duge Xinan fight alone. They are already dead. You still want to beat them to death? Mo Qingfeng glanced at him and then looked at Duge Xinan. Fighting like this isn't a solution. I'll bring you into the space. Mo Qingfeng didn't want Duge Nan to know that she had this treasure. But now was the time for them to escape. If they continued fighting like this, they would only be tired. This sovereign doesn't believe that I can't kill you, Duge Nan said coldly. He jumped up, his entire body was like an azura. Wherever he passed, a woman's head would fall off. He was like a gust of wind that swept past them. Soon, their heads were all taken off and thrown to the ground. So disgusting. Although Mo Qingfeng had killed countless people before and had taken off people's heads, it was very strange that these women could still move after their heads were taken off and their necks kept bleeding. Soon, the heads returned to their bodies, and they were able to fight like they had before. Duge Nan, stop fighting. They aren't humans. Mo Qingfeng took 2 steps forward and said to Duge Nan, who was flying in the air, "Come, I'll bring you into the space." Duge Nan was startled. He turned back and looked at her with a complicated expression. Space. 9 Dragon Balls space. So what if they entered the space? When they came out, weren't they still here? Duge Nan looked at the woman on the bed. His deep eyes flashed with a complicated expression. His face darkened. He released the life-stealing silver chain and then withdrew it. The woman on the bed stood up. Bang! The life-stealing silver chain was withdrawn. The woman's body exploded and turned into a wisp of white smoke. Mo Qingfeng stared blankly at the disappearing wisp of white smoke. She wanted to stop Duge Nan, but the words were stuck in her throat. The moment the woman's body exploded, she felt a pain in her heart and her legs went soft. If it wasn't for Gu Mei's quick reaction and supporting her, she would have fallen to the ground. After the woman turned into white smoke and disappeared, the 5 enchanting women also disappeared. Feng He, are you okay? Duge Nan rushed over and stood in front of her. He took her from Gu Mei's hands. His eyes were filled with nervousness. Mo Qingfeng shook her head. I'm fine. My legs suddenly went soft. Her eyes looked at the direction where the white smoke disappeared. Her mood was complicated. Let's get out of here. Duge Nan pulled Mo Qingfeng's hand and was about to leave. His footsteps suddenly stopped. His face turned cold and he immediately looked up. Above his head, there were countless fist-sized beads floating. Each bead emitted a dazzling light. Red light, green light, blue light, purple light, that they formed a regular circle and moved above their heads. It was like a net that would fall on them at any time. At this time, the sound of the ground cracking came. They were startled and looked down. Not only did the ground crack, there were also snakes as thick as arms crawling out. They wrapped around their legs and spat out their tongues. Damn it, I hate snakes the most in my life. Gu Mei cursed. He lifted his foot and stepped on the snake. He wanted to jump up but found that his chi seemed to be sealed by something. He couldn't use it. He was like a child who could struggle but couldn't resist. Master, my cultivation seems to have disappeared in an instant. Gu Mei looked at Duge Nan for help. At this time, Duge Nan carried Mo Qingfeng and didn't let the poisonous snakes wrap around her legs. There were already a few snakes coiling around his legs. If it wasn't for his cultivation being sealed, he would have already killed them. He didn't need Gu Mei to tell him. It was the beads above their heads that sealed their cultivation. Gu Mei was still struggling at first, kicking away the snakes. But there were more and more snakes. In the end, all the strength in his body disappeared. He fell to the ground and watched as the snakes wrapped around his body and then opened their mouths to bite him. Duge Nan's face was gloomy and his eyes were cold. He hugged Mo Qingfeng tightly. He didn't struggle but just stood there, ignoring the snakes that crawled from his legs to his waist. Mo Qingfeng also felt the changes in her body. She was soft and had no strength. She wanted to enter the space but couldn't. Every time she was at her weakest, she would lose connection with the 9 Dragon Balls. She looked up and her beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. Was she going to be bitten to death like this? What were those beads above her head? Why did she feel that they were emitting a strong murderous aura? Whoosh whoosh whoosh, suddenly, the beads above her head spun faster. The red bead in the middle suddenly turned into a woman's face. This face was extremely ugly and twisted. It opened its mouth and made a strange sound. Ah! Suddenly, the mouth opened even wider. As the sound rang out, the ground shook violently. Duge Nan's body swayed slightly, but he still tried to stand firm. You're all going to die, all of you. Ha! The red bead made a sinister sound like a female ghost. At this time, the crack under their feet became wider and wider. Their bodies completely lost their balance and suddenly fell towards the crack. Master, save me. Master. Gue Mei fell faster. When he fell into the crack, it was like there were countless thin needles pricking his body, causing him incomparable pain. Duge Nan didn't let go of Mo Qingfeng's hand. They also felt the pain of being pricked by countless needles, but they didn't howl like Gue Mei. There was the sound of flowing water that sounded like music. Mo Qingfeng's eyelids jumped. She moved her sore arms and opened her eyes. She found herself lying under a towering tree with a pile of green leaves under her. Sunlight shone through the leaves and sprinkled on her body. She looked around. It was a forest. Not far away, there was a mountain stream. The stream flowed slowly and the sound of flowing water was very pleasant to the ears. Little Feng Feng, you're awake. Gue Mei's face suddenly appeared in front of her. He stood beside her and moved his head closer. Mo Qingfeng suddenly sat up. Gue Mei didn't have time to dodge. Her forehead hit his high nose. It was so painful that he covered his nose and jumped back a few meters. Little Feng Feng. You want to kill me? Gue Mei covered his nose and glared at him. She knew that his head was close, but she still suddenly sat up. Did she want to kill him? Mo Qingfeng was startled. She didn't expect to hit his nose. She only thought that they had fallen into the abyss of hell. How did they appear here? There was sunlight, a stream flowing, a breeze blowing, and green trees accompanying them. She was certain that this wasn't hell. Could it be that they left the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain? Where's Duge Nan? Mo Qingfeng asked. Gue Mei complained for himself, Little Feng Feng, no matter what, I was once your husband. Now my nose is crooked because of you. Can't you care about me? Where did Duge Nan go? Mo Qingfeng frowned and asked coldly. She didn't care if Gue Mei's nose was crooked or not. She only cared if Duge Nan was injured. When they fell, he hugged her tightly. The pain of being pricked by needles still seemed to be lingering on his body. She couldn't stand the pain, but he endured it. He always held on to her tightly in life and death situations. No matter how cold Mo Qingfeng was, she couldn't not care about him. Gue Mei pouted like a child who had been wronged. He sat down on the ground. Master is fine. He told me to wait for you here. He went to pick a fruit for you to quench your thirst. Just drink water. There's a stream nearby. Why do you need to look for wild fruits? Chapter 1543. Mo Qingfeng gave Ghost a look that said, What do you know? Then he stood up and stretched his arms. Little Feng Feng, am I not handsome in human form? Ghost suddenly asked. Why did he feel that she was cold to him in human form? Mo Qingfeng was startled and turned to Ghost. Do you know what handsome is? He wasn't handsome, but he was extremely devilish. In modern times, any woman would scream if they saw him. Ghost frowned and said unhappily, of course I know. Why are you so cold to me in human form? Am I not good-looking enough? Mo Qingfeng snorted, you recognized Duge Zenin as your master the moment you turned into human form. Do you think I would be warm to you? Master is strong enough. It's natural for me to recognize him as my master. Do you want me to hug and touch you to be warm? Mo Qingfeng raised his eyebrows and looked at Ghost with a smile. Ghost flung his long red hair, his devilish face became even more devilish. Is my red hair good-looking? Good-looking, you're the best-looking in Rosen continent. Narcissist. No matter how good-looking you are, you're still a male firebird. Duge Zenin's cold voice came from behind Mo Qingfeng. This sentence made Ghost feel hurt. A male firebird was still a good-looking firebird. Mo Qingfeng turned his eyes. His black clothes fluttered, cold and noble. He held two pear-like fruits in his hands. They were green and lustrous. Just looking at them made one want to eat them. He walked over and put the fruits in Mo Qingfeng's hands. He asked with concern, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Does your body still hurt? Mo Qingfeng shook his head, my arms hurt when I move. Then he smiled awkwardly, I'm hungry, I'll eat first. Then he walked towards the stream and squatted beside it to wash the fruits. His eyes were affectionate before, but now they were cold as he looked at Ghost. Are you very free? Didn't Master say that you want to rest here? You said that the spirit energy here is good for little Feng Fang's cultivation. Are you in a hurry? Go hunt, Feng Er wants to eat meat. Master, why don't you hunt when you pick the fruits? Ghost jumped up and shouted in dissatisfaction. He was also very tired. In the Imperial Cauldron God Beast Mountain, he was very tired from fighting and had not recovered yet. Duge Zenin raised his eyebrows and looked at him coldly. Do you not want to follow this sovereign anymore? When the ghost heard this, his handsome face withered. He curled his lips and turned around to go hunting dejectedly. Mo Qingfeng washed the fruits and smiled at Duge Zenin. Do you want one? I've already eaten. Mo Qingfeng glanced at Ghost Charm's back and was in a good mood. Ghost Charm seems to listen to you. I am his master. He should listen to me. As he spoke, he sat on the pile of green leaves, his eyes locked onto Mo Qingfeng's face. He was in a good mood. He was now completely certain that the familiar aura and smell on her body really came from her. Her reaction when he saw her in the dragon-taming spiritual pearl room had already explained everything. When he destroyed her body and her legs went soft and she was about to fall, he was even more certain. He could finally put down the stone in his heart. Come and sit down. A rare smile appeared on Duge Zenin's face. His smile was as beautiful as an immortal's and as intoxicating as cherry blossoms in March. His voice had a trace of gentleness and pampering, but it also had a strong power that made people unable to refuse. Mo Qingfeng did not refuse and was very obedient. She walked over and sat beside him. Eat the fruits. Mo Qingfeng was like a little girl and obediently ate the two wild fruits. The wild fruits looked like pears on the outside, but they were crispy, fragrant, and juicy. In the modern world, it was impossible to eat such delicious wild fruits. Maybe because she was too hungry and her mouth was dry, these two wild fruits came at the right time. In a short while, Mo Qingfeng finished them. After eating the two wild fruits, her lips became rosy and were not as dry as before. Her complexion was also much better. Looking at her seductive red lips, Duguze Nan's eyes darkened and his throat slid up and down. Mo Qingfeng hugged her knees and her gaze fell on a tree with round leaves in front of her. She thought about the woman who looked exactly like her in her previous life. She believed that everything had a cause and effect. Everything was predestined. Did she transmigrate because of her? Duguze Nan narrowed his eyes. His eyes were as dark as obsidian and incomparably bright. He stared at her side profile without blinking. She had become even more beautiful now. Suddenly, his long arm could not help but wrap around her waist and quickly pull her into his embrace. Mo Qingfeng was shocked. She raised her head and saw an exquisite face with a jade-like luster. Seeing his handsome face so close and his obsidian-like eyes, Mo Qingfeng's heart trembled. Duguze Nan. Her heart trembled, but her mind was still clear. Her beautiful eyes glared fiercely at Duguze Nan. She used all her strength to struggle and push him away. Unfortunately, Duguze Nan's strength was too great. His arms wrapped around her like a vice and he pressed his chin against her forehead. He smelled her fragrance and felt her body temperature. His voice was a bit hoarse. "You are this lord's woman. Can't this lord hug you? Damn it, when did this lady become your woman?" Mo Qingfeng struggled with all her might, but it was useless. Duguze Nan did not let go. Instead, he hooked her face with one arm and raised his other hand. His white jade-like palm gently stroked her delicate face. Mo Qingfeng looked at him in surprise. She believed that if he wanted her body, she would not be able to resist him. Was he the kind of man who would force her? Thinking of this, it was like a bucket of cold water was poured over her head. Her heart was heavy. Suddenly, he lowered his head and his thin lips fiercely sealed the red lips that had tempted him for a long time. He kissed her passionately, sucking in her beauty and devouring her everything. Damned man. Mo Qingfeng was furious and fiercely resisted, but his kiss suddenly became passionate and sweet. His arms held her firmly. Resistance was useless. Instead, under his passionate kiss, her stiff body slowly softened and she collapsed in his arms. Duguze Nan's heart was filled with joy. He hugged her even tighter. The two bodies were tightly pressed together. He wantonly and boldly plundered everything from her. When the kiss was deep, Duguze Nan suddenly let go of her. He gave her a charming and evil smile. "Now you still won't admit that you are this lord's woman?" When Mo Qingfeng heard this, the corner of her eyes fiercely twitched. She became his woman just like that. She wanted to laugh, but she couldn't. "So what if I am your woman? Will you protect me for the rest of your life?" Mo Qingfeng looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Her cheeks were rosy and her lips were a bit red and swollen. It was extremely tempting. Duguze Nan's deep eyes became burning hot. He stared at her affectionately. "Since you are this lord's woman, you can't look at other men directly in the future." Mo Qingfeng sneered, "Domineering man." Suddenly, Duguze Nan's affectionate eyes became as cold as ice. His hands pressed down on her shoulders. "This lord is domineering. For life after life, you can only be this lord's wife." Mo Qingfeng pushed his hand away. Her face was cold. Mo Qingfeng, will be whoever's wife I want to be. No one can control me." As she spoke, she stood up and turned to walk towards the stream. The wind slowly blew by, blowing away the inexplicable heat in her, but it couldn't blow away the anger in her heart. Duguze Nan's eyes were dark and cold. He looked straight at her back. After a long time, he stood up and walked behind her. He hugged her from behind. His nose went into her hair and smelled the faint fragrance. "This lord wants you to be willing to be my wife." A low voice sounded in her ear. Mo Qingfeng's eyes were even colder. Duge Nan, you better let go. Why should I let go? It's not the first time this lord has hugged you. When Mo Qingfeng heard this, she was so angry she wanted to hit him. At this time, Gue Mei came back with 2 wild rabbits. Seeing them hugging each other, he smiled evilly. Master is right. Little Feng Feng, it's not the first time you've been hugged by Master. What are you shy about? Your love will not change for 1,000 years or 10,000 years. It was like this in your past life and it's still like this in this life. Mo Qingfeng's body stiffened and her brows furrowed. Why did it feel like Gue Mei's words had a hidden meaning? She and Duge Nan had a past life. Wasn't the previous host his mother in her past life? This was what he said to her personally. Duge Nan let go and turned to look coldly at Gue Mei. Why haven't you roasted the wild rabbits yet? I guarantee you'll be able to eat delicious roasted meat in an hour. As he spoke, Gue Mei went to the side to kill the wild rabbits. He left time and space for Duge Nan and Mo Qingfeng. After an hour, they ate delicious roasted meat. After eating and drinking their fill, Duge Nan looked deeply at Mo Qingfeng, who was still angry, and said, "At night, the spirit energy in this forest is thicker. Try to find if the dragon taming spirit pearl is on you or where it is on your body." How do I try to find it? Mo Qingfeng was shallow to cultivation. This lord will guide you. Another hour later, the sky gradually darkened. It was now evening and the wind in the forest was clearly stronger. The birds had returned to their nests and the cries of wild beasts could be heard from the distance. By the stream, Mo Qingfeng and Duge Nan were sitting cross-legged facing each other. Their eyes were closed and they were already cultivating. Gue Mei didn't slack off and also went to the other side to cultivate. The sky was completely dark and the moonlight was extremely beautiful. It was hazy and mysterious. Duge Nan took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes. For experts with high cultivation, even if it was night, it didn't affect their vision. They could see the same things as in the day. As long as they didn't close their eyes, there was no difference between night and day. He stared deeply at Mo Qingfeng's beautiful face. Seeing her eyelids move, he asked, "How do you feel?" Mo Qingfeng opened her eyes. Under the moonlight, he was extremely good-looking. "I can't find the dragon taming spirit pearl. I don't know if it's in my body or not, but my luck is good. The qi in my dantian has disappeared and my meridians are fine." Duge responded and said unhurriedly, "The immortal qi in your body has disappeared, which means that the dragon-taming spiritual pearl has entered your body. You can't find it because your strength is not enough. You still need to cultivate more." Chapter 1544. After staying in the forest for 2 days, Mo Qingfeng found out that this mountain was called Mount Pilin. It wasn't far from the Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain. When they fell, they directly fell here. Duge told her that everything that happened in the cave was an illusion. As long as one's willpower was strong, they wouldn't die. Mount Pilin was full of spirit energy. Many self-cultivators came here to cultivate and absorb the natural spirit energy. Duge planned to stay here for a few more days. He wanted to use this mountain to cultivate and also hoped that Mo Qingfeng's strength would improve. Gue Mei liked this place. For a 9th-level magical beast like him, the spirit energy was very helpful for his advancement. Since last night, he cultivated day and night. Duge didn't disturb him. On the 7th day, they left Mount Pilin. They spent several hours to walk out of Mount Pilin. On the way, they saw countless magical beasts and cultivators. Mount Pilin wasn't only a favorite place for cultivators, but also for magical beasts. Under Dugezinen's guidance, Mo Qingfeng felt that her cultivation had improved after a few days of cultivation. She was in high spirits and her face was very rosy. As they walked out of Mount Pilin, they picked wild fruits to eat. They didn't feel hungry for several hours. After walking out of Mount Pilin, they found that there were few people around Mount Pilin. The fields were dry and no one was farming. There wasn't even a straw hut in a radius of 10 miles. There wasn't even a small stream with water. Grass didn't even grow in the fields. It was noon and the sun was high above their heads. It was extremely hot. Mount Pilin is right in front of us. The trees and grass are lush and there are countless springs. Why is it like this outside? Mo Qingfeng looked around. Other than the people who came to Mount Pilin to cultivate, no other people came here. The Imperial Cauldron Beast Mountain is located at the border of Chu Qian Nation and Shihuang Nation. This place belongs to Shihuang Nation. It's been a drought for many years. No one lives nearby. They all moved to other places. The drought is like a plague, slowly spreading out and forcing the people to move. Dugezinen said. I really regret not picking more wild fruits from Mount Pilin. How long will it take to reach the market? Dugezinen tilted his head and looked at her dotingly. You don't need to go. Have you forgotten my iron blood bat? Dugezinen called the iron blood bat. They jumped on its back and the iron blood bat spread its wings. Finally, they landed in a small town. The town wasn't big, but it was bustling. People. The visitors were all cultivators from all over the world. They were passing by the town and were staying and eating in the town. On the side of the street, all kinds of rare treasures were sold. In the middle of the street, there was a medicine shop called Peace Hall, which was very busy every day. The medicine hall mainly sold elixirs. Cultivators yearned for all kinds of elixirs that could help them improve. Opposite the Peace Hall, there was also a shop that sold all kinds of magical beast elixirs. It was called Elixir Affinity Pavilion. Different grades of magical beast elixirs had different prices. Magical beast elixirs were also something that cultivators yearned for. See Beast. As he spoke, he turned around and walked towards Pill Affinity Pavilion, B. An old man came out and begged the blue-robed man, young Master Lon, don't hit him. Don't hit him. The blue-robed man swung his arm and pushed the old man away. He strode in front of the young man and kicked him. There were many people watching the show, but very few people came to help. You dare to sell fake pills to me? Today, this young master will take your life. The blue-robed man's face was ferocious and vicious. Young Master Lon, I really didn't sell fake pills. I didn't. The young man covered his head with his arms and begged, Young Master Lon, I beg you. The Peace Hall will never sell fake pills. The Peace Hall won't sell fake pills. You're the one who secretly gave fake pills to me. The blue-robed man kicked the young man a few times. The youth howled in pain, but he was unable to resist. The youth looked to be only 13 or 14 years old. He had a delicate and pretty face, and was also very thin. As for the blue-robed man, he was at least 27 or 28 years old. He was tall and powerful, and was also a martial artist. How could the youth have the strength to fight back? Mo Qingfeng hated men who bullied the weak the most. Suddenly, she waved her hand and the blue-robed man flew out. He hit the stone pillar in front of the Peace Hall and rolled on the ground. Young Master! Young Master! When the blue-robed man landed, the two followers were shocked at first. Then, they quickly went to help the blue-robed man up. The blue-robed man's chest was very painful. He coughed violently for a while before looking at Mo Qingfeng. He roared fiercely, Who dares to attack me? Mo Qingfeng sneered. He couldn't even see who hit him, yet he dared to be so arrogant. Gue Mei helped the young man up. When the blue-robed man saw this, he thought it was Gue Mei who hit him. He ignored the pain in his chest and rushed up to attack Gue Mei. Mo Qingfeng waved her life-reaping silver chain and wrapped it around the blue-robed man's neck. The blue-robed man didn't dare to move again. His fiendish eyes lit up when he saw Mo Qingfeng's peerless beauty and awe-inspiring aura. He stared blankly at her. There was such a cold and beautiful woman in this world. Young master. Young master. The blue-robed man's two followers walked over and stared at Mo Qingfeng and Du Gezinen. These two people had cold expressions and extraordinary auras. They were not to be trifled with. Beauty, I'm just teaching a lesson to someone who deserves to die. Don't meddle in other people's business, okay? The blue-robed man changed his fierce look and looked at Mo Qingfeng with covetous eyes. From what I see, you're the one who deserves to die, right? Mo Qingfeng sneered and withdrew her hand. The blue-robed man grimaced in pain. Ah! Don't exert yourself. Miss, let go of young Master Lan. Don't make this a big deal. The old man walked over and begged Mo Qingfeng. Mo Qingfeng looked at him coldly and snorted. You're still pleading for someone like him who bullies the good with evil. He's the son of the princess of Shihuang Kingdom. If something happens to him, aren't you asking for trouble? The old man approached Mo Qingfeng and whispered. Du Gezinen raised his eyebrows and coldly glanced at the blue-robed man. He said to Mo Qingfeng, Is this kind of man worthy of being taught a lesson by Feng? Mo Qingfeng naturally understood what Du Gezinen meant. Killing this kind of man was dirtying her hands. But this kind of man deserved to die. The son of the princess of Shihuang Kingdom. If she didn't kill him, who would? Seeing the old man's fear of him and the fact that no one helped him when he punched and kicked the young man, it seemed that this man was used to being domineering in this area. Lanjua, I finally caught you. Suddenly, a young woman rushed out and grabbed the blue-robed man's arm and pulled him to the side. It wasn't that Mo Qingfeng was slow, but that she didn't want to take back the silver chain. The woman who suddenly rushed out seemed to have just arrived. She didn't know what was going on and didn't see the silver chain around the blue-robed man's neck. Her strength wasn't small either. The blue-robed man was pulled over by her, but his head fell to the ground. Mo Qingfeng quickly took back the silver chain. The silver chain was made by Du Gezinen. It was thin and transparent. It was a hidden weapon. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. Young master! Young master! The two followers of the blue-robed man shouted in fear. How did the young master's head leave his body in the blink of an eye? When the woman who was dragging him saw that the blue-robed man had no head and that his neck was still dripping with blood, she was so scared that her face turned pale. She covered her mouth tightly with both hands and looked at the body on the ground in horror. The onlookers, other than the outsiders, saw that the blue-robed man was dead and secretly shouted in joy. However, they looked at the woman and Mo Qingfeng sympathetically. The princess's son was killed by them. Not only would the princess's family not let them go, but the Blue clan also wouldn't let them go. They were in big trouble. Mo Qingfeng and Du Gezinen were very calm. Mo Qingfeng was just thinking about whether to kill this arrogant man when a woman jumped out and pulled him away. She didn't have to do anything and the man died, saving her a lot of effort. Oh no, oh no. Young Master Lan was killed. We can't escape, the old man said nervously. He was so panicked that he stomped his feet. The young man who was kicked was also trembling in fear. He didn't know what to do. It wasn't that he hadn't seen a cruel death, but the one who died was young Master Langlois. It was impossible for the Peace Hall to establish itself in Mountain River Town in the future. It was also a mystery whether he could keep his life. I didn't kill her. I don't know what happened. The young woman said loudly. She was the third young miss of the Lou residence, Lou Rouois. She was as beautiful as a flower, but she was willful and unruly. She knew Langlois since she was young and there was a lot of hatred between them. Although Lou Rouois was willful, she was the most diligent person in the Lou residence. Her cultivation wasn't low and she often cultivated in Mountain River Town. Therefore, she was familiar with the surroundings of Mountain River Town. 2 days ago, when she was cultivating in Mountain River Town, she met Langlois and his servants. She killed a wolf spirit and dug out its inner core. Langlois happened to be there, but the three of them snatched the wolf's inner core away. Lou Rouois' cultivation was the same as Langlois'. Moreover, Langlois was a man and had 2 other attendants. Lou Rouois' servant girl didn't know martial arts and could only serve her daily needs. Naturally, she couldn't help in a fight. In the end, the wolf spirit's inner core that she worked so hard to get was snatched away. Lou Rouois was furious, but she couldn't beat Langlois. She could only swallow her anger. Today, when she saw him from afar, the anger that was suppressed in her stomach suddenly surged up. She thought that even if she couldn't win, she couldn't let him have peace. She didn't expect that he would die just like that. Chapter 1545. After the shock, Lou Rouois' face turned pale. No matter how willful she was, she knew she was in trouble. How could the Lou family fight against the Blue family? Suddenly, Lou Rouois looked at Mo Qingfeng and saw that most of them were looking at her. Lou Rouois was startled and pointed at Mo Qingfeng. "It's you. You killed Langlois." Mo Qingfeng frowned and looked at Lou Rouois indifferently. "If you didn't run out, he wouldn't have died. If it wasn't for you, even if I ran out, he wouldn't have died." Lou Rouois said and glanced at de Gazinin. It would have been better if she didn't look. Now that she saw him, her heart skipped a beat. The man had delicate features and was as cold as an azura. He had a pure and noble aura. It was the man in her dreams. When a person's cultivation was high, they didn't need to show their strength. It could be seen at a glance. Just like de Gazinin. He didn't need to do anything, but his cold and murderous aura made people not dare to underestimate him. There was also the red-haired man beside him. He had an indifferent expression and a handsome face. He wasn't a simple man either. Lou Rouois' expression suddenly changed and became a little wronged and innocent. She looked at Mo Qingfeng and said, "Langlois stole my beast core the day before yesterday. When I saw him today, I wanted him to return it to me. I was angry that he stole my beast core. I didn't want to kill him. I really didn't do it on purpose." Mo Qingfeng ignored her and looked at the old man. "Are you the owner of the Peace Hall?" The old man shook his head. "No." "Does the Peace Hall really sell fake pills?" "Absolutely not." The old man said with certainty, "The Peace Hall has been established for dozens of years and has a good reputation. The owner is an alchemist. Since the establishment of the Peace Hall, the owner has only improved his alchemy skills. He won't make fake pills." Mo Qingfeng looked at the trembling young man again. "Could it be that you stole the real pill and sold the fake one to others?" The young man heard and quickly said, "Miss, I'm innocent. How could I have the ability to make fake medicinal pills? When I came to the Peace Hall with young Master Lan to buy medicinal pills, there were a total of 6 people. None of them said that the medicinal pills were fake. Only he said that they were fake." Mo Qingfeng looked at de Gazinin and helplessly said, another domineering young master who likes to cause trouble and create trouble out of nothing. The death of such a person is not worth pitying. Dugazinen looked at her deeply. As long as Feng thinks he deserves to die, then he deserves to die. I'm suddenly interested in the peace hall. Let's go in and take a look. Mo Qingfeng wanted to see what kind of pills the peace hall sold. Anha Hall was no different from other pharmacies. There were tables and chairs for consultation, as well as medicine shelves. Medicinal herbs and medicinal pills were all placed on the shelves. It was far from being comparable to Thousand Ji Hall. However, there were also countless people who came here. Do you have any pills that can increase cultivation? Mo Qingfeng asked the old man. Yes, yes, yes. The old man nodded and personally ran to the shelves to take out a bottle with the words Soul Return Pill written on it. He walked to Mo Qingfeng. Miss, this is the pill that can increase cultivation. Not only can it increase cultivation, but it can also heal internal or external injuries. Take it and you will be able to continue cultivating in less than an hour. Saying this, the old man poured out a pill and respectfully said to Mo Qingfeng, if you need it, this pill is free of charge. Mo Qingfeng took the pill to her nose and sniffed it. The pill was pure black with a glossy surface. It was made from several rare and precious spirit herbs. These spirit herbs were exactly the ones recorded in the Iron Blood scripture. There's Beast Ghost Pill and Thousand-Year Leaf. Mo Qingfeng said and then looked at the old man, you're really giving such precious pills to me for free. According to the Iron Blood scripture pill scroll, the pills made from the ghost-faced flower and the thousand-year chain leaf could rapidly increase one's cultivation by 5 times. However, the ghost-faced flower and the thousand-year chain leaf were rare and not easy to collect. She also went to the top of Mount Dansha to pick 2 of them. In the end, she refined them into 3 panaceas and placed them in the elixir exchange. She didn't put a price on them because she was reluctant to sell them. At that time, she felt a strange energy in her body and her meridians would hurt when she cultivated, so she didn't dare to take it. Now that the immortal energy was gone, why wouldn't she want free pills? Mo Qingfeng and the old man's conversation attracted many cultivators. Not only the old man, but they were all shocked to hear Mo Qingfeng name the Soul Return Pill. A spirit Dan refined with these 2 spirit herbs would definitely be a good spirit Dan. Miss, you know about pills. The old man looked at Mo Qingfeng with surprise. Mo Qingfeng smiled and said modestly, I just have a special interest in pills. I've studied them before but I don't know much. Duge Nan looked at Mo Qingfeng with a smile in his eyes. Her smile was so bright and beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. Pills are good, I wonder if I can see the boss of Peaceful Hall. She wanted to see the boss of Anha store, not to learn refining techniques from him, but to ask him where to get the ghost-faced flower and thousand-year chain leaf. Even Duge didn't know, but the boss of Anha store knew, so he must be an expert. In her heart, Duge had silently become a supreme being. If Duge knew that he had become a master in her heart, he would be so excited that he wouldn't eat or drink for a few days. The old man said awkwardly, I'm sorry, even the staff of Peaceful Hall have never seen the boss's face. Every time, it's young Master Situ who delivers the pills. Young Master Situ will deliver the pills at the end of each month. We don't know where he is at the rest of the time. It might be difficult for you to see the boss. Doesn't that mean I have to wait 20 days before I can see young Master Situ? Mo Qingfeng said. Today was only the 9th day of the month. May I ask your name? The old man looked at Mo Qingfeng's beautiful face and suddenly thought of Mo Qingfeng in Chu Qian country. Her deeds had spread far and wide and almost everyone knew her. Mo Qingfeng. Mo Qingfeng replied, If I can't stay here for another 20 days, please tell young Master Situ that Mo Qingfeng from Chu Qian Country's 1000G Hall is looking for him. If he wants to meet, he can come find me at 1000G Hall. Mo Qingfeng. The old man was shocked. It really was Mo Qingfeng. Everyone also revealed a look of surprise. This devastatingly beautiful woman before their eyes was actually Mo Qingfeng. De Gazinen frowned. Their reactions naturally fell into his eyes. He stared at Mo Qingfeng. Feng her, you seem to be famous. Is that so? Mo Qingfeng looked at everyone and saw that they were all looking at her in shock. She thought to herself, was she really famous? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.